Chapter 1059. Huang Xiaoyan took a deep breath and slowly landed on the ground. After forming his physical body's source strength, he could borrow power from the void and exert all of his strength. Although he didn't use any battle skills, he still dispersed the tribulation lightning that was comparable to a mid-nascent soul-stage cultivator. His skin was slightly charred, and the bones deep in his body were a bit dim. He had suffered some minor injuries, but with the life force and pure, demonic spiritual energy from the dissipation of the tribulation lightning, his body was quickly recovering. Huang Xiaoyan didn't pay attention to the recovery of his demonic energy. Instead, he focused on his hands. His 5 fingers formed a claw, and a dark golden vortex rotated in the middle of his 5 fingers. It was in the shape of a cone, trying to condense his physical body's source strength. Huang Xiaoyan's forehead was covered in sweat. Why can Master use a single finger to condense the whirlpool finger? Although the range of my source strength field is half, it's still compressed by 5 fingers. Why can't I use this battle skill that can transform into a penetrating power? He focused his mind on his right palm and tried to use the whirlpool finger's profound meaning. However, no matter how he tried, he couldn't condense the penetrating power. Damn it, do I have to use a 3-foot source strength field like Master's? Huang Xiaoyan looked at his trembling right hand. Because he had gathered a large amount of physical body's source strength, his palm was under heavy pressure. The skin on his palm was cracking because of the invisible force of 400 to 500,000 kilograms. He looked up at the crazily spinning tribulation clouds, and his eyes flashed with a dignified expression. The next tribulation lightning seems to be even stronger. Do I need to use void force to use a battle skill? My passive source strength field is much smaller than Master's. The void force will probably consume a lot more demonic energy. Moreover, the demonic energy is only temporarily merged. If it's used up, something might happen. Is there such a big gap between different physiques in terms of combat strength? I can't even use a single battle skill. Huang Xiaoyan scanned his body. When he saw the sword bones emitting a sharp aura, he suddenly realized something. No, I'm going the wrong direction. Master's greatest strength is his physical strength. At the early stage of bone transformation, he has a terrifying brute strength of 800,000 genes. As long as he can display this strength to the extreme, his combat strength will be incomparably terrifying. My strength is only about 500,000 kilograms, which is not outstanding, but all my bone treasures have turned into sword treasures of the mature stage. The sharpness contained in them is the most powerful part. I shouldn't focus on exerting my strength, but on displaying the characteristics of my physical body and sword treasure. Master's battle skill has unleashed his terrifying strength to the extreme. The powerful bone treasure is the cornerstone of his strength. As for my combat skills, I should be able to unleash the sharpness of my sword treasure. My physical strength of over 500,000 gene is the cornerstone to unleash the power of my sword treasure. Although the sword will Dharma power has disappeared, the extreme sharpness attribute still exists in the demon energy. Just now, when I added it to the palm bone, it also activated the sharpness attribute of the sword treasure. Thinking of this, Huang Xiaoyan's spirit was refreshed. All the demon energy in his body was mobilized, and the elemental spirit array on his bones flashed one after another. When the bone treasure was completed, the array on his bones was re-engraved. The original sword-controlling array had been erased and replaced with the elemental spirit array. He also added the unique sharpness array of swordsmanship. The energy in his body had changed, and there was also the source strength of his physical body. The activation of the sword treasure seemed to be different. He now wanted to use the demon energy and the elemental spirit array to stimulate the sharpness of the sword treasure, just like when he used his body to stimulate the sword chi in the Sword Valley. As Huang Xiaoyan's mind turned, his body exuded an amazing light. The sword bones in his body lit up one after another, and a sharp force intertwined in his body. While activating the sword treasure, his mind was rapidly spinning the various battle skills that Lu Kuan had described, especially the severing fist battle skill. Although he couldn't use it at all with his strength and the range of his origin energy field, it didn't hinder him from comprehending the technique of operating origin energy. There were too many sword treasures in Huang Xiaoyan's body, and they were all inlaid magic treasures. They couldn't be separated and used. One or two of them were fine, but there were hundreds of them. It was impossible to use the sharpness of the sword treasures together. The power of a single sword treasure was too ordinary for a nascent soul stage thunder tribulation. The severing fist battle skill intercepted the external heaven and earth origin energy. Then why couldn't he use the origin energy of his physical body to intercept the sharpness of the hundreds of sword treasures and gather it at one point to launch an incomparably powerful sharpness attack? Huang Xiaoyan's heart continued to ponder. A layer of dark golden light film appeared outside his body. The origin energy field of more than a foot flowed around his body. The sharpness of his body surged wildly. Blood gradually appeared on the skin of his body, as if he was under great pressure. In the distance, Lu Kuan and Yu Longfei naturally noticed the abnormality of Huang Xiaoyan's body. In particular, Yu Longfei felt the mixed sharpness of the sword treasures. He couldn't help but say, "Pavilion Master, Huang Xiaoyan seems to be controlling the sword bones in his body. His divine sense hasn't evolved to the nascent soul stage, and he doesn't have sword intent in his body. It's impossible for him to control so many sword treasures. If he randomly controls them like this, it's very likely that he'll damage the sword bones themselves." Lu Kuan didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the sky. A terrifying amount of heaven and earth origin energy and devil origin energy gathered there. A huge thunderball with a diameter of 10 feet emerged from the tribulation cloud with a faint golden halo. The destructive power contained within was still at the mid-nascent soul stage. However, with the addition of a layer of heaven and earth origin energy, its power was even stronger than that of a peak mid-nascent soul stage attack. Lu Kuan said calmly, "The fourth lightning tribulation contains heaven and earth origin energy. It should be the last one. Whether or not he can pass it depends on Huang Xiaoyan himself. If I recklessly interfere, it might have the opposite effect." Yu Longfei didn't say anything after hearing this. However, from the corner of his eye, he saw Lu Kuan clenching his fists. The nearby air was somewhat distorted. Clearly, the Pavilion Master was very nervous. Thinking of Zhao Qingtian's death, he sighed in his heart and looked in the direction of Huang Xiaoyan. How did the sharpness of the sword disappear without a trace? Huang Xiaoyan stood on the ground. The dark golden light film on the surface of his body had disappeared. He was like an ordinary person. It was a sharp contrast to before. It seemed that all of his aura had been restrained by him. He ignored the fourth lightning tribulation in the sky. His eyes were closed, and his palms were clasped in front of his chest. Between his fingers, a faint dark golden light could be seen flashing. Rumble. The golden thunderball that contained a terrifying aura fell from the sky and fell in the direction of Huang Xiaoyan. The latter seemed to have sensed it. The 5 fingers of his right hand pressed tightly against his left hand and quickly bent into a fist. He seemed to have grasped something. Then his fist faced the sky, and his left palm pressed under his right wrist. This seemingly ordinary right fist seemed to be under great pressure. His 5 fingers trembled violently, as if something terrifying was being born in it. Huang Xiaoyan closed his eyes tightly. He seemed to be enduring something. Not only his right fist, but his left palm also trembled. Just when the thunderball that contained the power of the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth was about 10 feet away from him, Huang Xiaoyan suddenly opened his eyes. His body sank slightly, and his legs exerted force. The force traveled up his torso and was instantly transmitted to his right arm. His trembling right fist fiercely punched towards the sky. His 5 tightly clenched fingers suddenly opened. In an instant, a suffocating sharpness spread out. A dark golden spiral sword qi that was as thick as an arm and 3 feet long shot up from the center of his fist into the sky. The next moment, the thunderball that was shining with a terrifying aura was blasted into two by this seemingly teleporting sword chi. Boom! After the spiral sword chi entered the thunderball, it actually exploded like a golden firework. In addition to the terrifying sharpness, it also erupted with countless destructive forces. The thunderball was blasted into pieces by these two attacks. The halo of the yuan chi of heaven and earth seemed to dissipate due to the lack of destructive force. The remaining sporadic lightning fell on Huang Xiaoyun's body like a drizzle without any force. It only caused his skin to be slightly charred. Huang Xiaoyun looked at his badly mutilated right palm and felt the life force surging into his body. He revealed a smile as if a heavy burden had been lifted off his shoulders. He reversed the operation of the whirlpool finger and jewel fist battle skills. He used the 500,000 kilograms of origin energy field as a transporter. It radiated into his body and gathered the sharpness of the hundreds of sword treasures. Lu Kuan's jewel fist battle skill intercepted the yuan chi of heaven and earth and finally exploded at his fist. This was because after the bones of his hand clenched into a fist, they were combined with the most bone treasures and had the strongest endurance. Therefore, the sharpness that he gathered also had to be gathered at his fist. Huang Xiaoyun had been clenching his fist tightly without releasing it. Other than wanting to compress the sharpness to the extreme, there was also the release distance. The sharpness that was condensed was equivalent to an invisible sword chi. When he had magic power in his body, he could naturally use chi to control the sword and attack with sword chi. Now that he had lost his magic power, he could only use the power of the void to assist him. The maximum range of his attack was only 10 feet. Therefore, when the thunder tribulation approached, it suddenly exploded. When it was truly unleashed, Huang Xiaoyun discovered that his magic power could be added to the sharpness of the sharpness. This meant that there were two parts of damage contained within. The first part was an incomparably sharp and penetrative sword chi. The second part was the destructive power of the explosion of magic power. Under the combination of the two, this terrifying thunder tribulation was shattered into pieces with just one attack. Huang Xiaoyun muttered in his heart, condensing the power into the fist and using the power to control the sword. This battle skill should be called Fist Heart Sword. Chapter 1060. Yu Longfei rubbed his eyes, as if he couldn't believe what he had just seen. Huang Xiaoyun's burst of sword energy scared him out of his wits. Such a sharp sword energy that even contained the power of destruction. Its power was on par with the Heavenly Fault Sword's divine ability. This bone transformation sword cultivator who had just broken through not only had the attack power of a middle nascent soul stage sword cultivator, but his body was also comparable to a monster. The power of the sword body secret art seemed to be far beyond his imagination. Pavilion Master? Just as Yu Longfei was pondering, Lu Kuan suddenly vanished from the spot, transforming into numerous afterimages as he charged into the gradually dissipating tribulation clouds in the sky. In just a short while, the sky had completely vanished. Lu Kuan floated in the air. There was a pool of milky white liquid in his palm, wrapped in a layer of invisible energy. He frowned. The aura inside seems to be different from the aura of the demonic beast tribulation clouds. He glanced at Huang Xiaoyun, whose aura was rapidly rising, and waved his hand. A small drop of liquid was intercepted and swallowed into his mouth. Strange. After this drop of liquid entered his body, it was different from the worldly liquid of the monster beasts. It didn't turn into energy, but rushed to the nearest bone. But after it entered, it didn't seem to find anything, just anxiously swimming in the bone. The worldly liquid of the monster tribulation clouds is used to stabilize the meridians and dantian. This drop of liquid comes from the body Cultivator tribulation clouds, so it should be used to stabilize the demon energy. But the life force in my body is rich, and my demon energy is incomparably stable, so it has no effect. Then he wrapped it with blood essence, but this drop of liquid was different from life essence. It couldn't be absorbed. It can't be absorbed, but it has the effect of stabilizing the demon energy. Wait, it can be used. Lu Kuan's expression changed, and a gray brick appeared in his hand. The demon energy in his hand surged and poured into this battle treasure. The latter trembled slightly, emitting an invisible vibration force field. The drop of liquid in Lu Kuan's body seemed to sense something and followed his palm bone into the brick battle treasure. After the demon energy inside received this energy, it immediately stabilized. It really works. Lu Kuan showed a bit of surprise. He didn't expect that this drop of liquid could even stabilize the demon energy outside the body. If it was combined with the battle treasure, wouldn't it directly solve the flaw of the battle treasure? Thinking in his heart, he also poured the remaining white liquid into the battle treasure. The fusion with the demon energy in the battle treasure doesn't seem to dissipate. Then Lu Kuan put away the battle treasure and looked at Pan Yan's position. Now was not the time to study the battle treasure. At this moment, Pan Yan had already passed through the third thunder tribulation, which was comparable to the power of the mid-stage nascent soul stage. Just as Lu Kuan had predicted, he had absorbed the third thunder tribulation, which was equivalent to the power of the mid-stage nascent soul stage. He released the essence of his flesh and blood, transforming from his skeletal body into a muscular giant. A layer of invisible force field appeared around him, radiating a distance of 2 feet. Pan Yan showed a trace of fear. Fortunately, he engraved a sturdy array, which made the bone treasure's defense amazing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to pass the first 3 lightning tribulations so easily. Since Huang Xiaoyun had finished his tribulation, the tribulation cloud above him sped up. A long, thick lightning bolt fell from the sky. The destructive force inside, it was much stronger than the third one. It seemed to have reached the peak of the nascent soul stage, and its power skyrocketed. Pan Yan looked up at the sky, his eyes flashing with determination. Although he had been transcending the tribulation, he had seen the surrounding scene. Senior brother Zhao Qingtian had failed the tribulation, and Sher Chao and Yu Xian hadn't triggered the tribulation yet. It seemed that there was a problem with the breakthrough. He must live up to his master's expectations. Pan Yan slightly lowered his body and crossed his arms over his head. The invisible origin force field rotated in the cross-shaped gap of his arms, forming 4 dark yellow vortexes, like a cross shield, blocking the top of his head. Boom! Pan Yan's entire body was shrouded by the lightning pillar, but a small half of the destructive force was sucked into the 4 origin force vortexes. The origin energy vortex was a combat skill that transformed one's physical force field into the twisting power of the vortex. It could be used to absorb and destroy other types of energy. If it was used for defense, it could disperse the destructive power of the lightning tribulation. It used a passive origin force field, and the consumption of demonic energy was not high. It consumed the lightning tribulation at an extremely high efficiency. Although Pan Yan had a 6-star physique, his physical strength was not higher than Huang Xiaoyun's. It was still more than 500,000 pounds. The destructive force of the peak of the nascent soul stage couldn't be completely offset by relying on this level of origin force. He could only absorb a part of it. The remaining half of the lightning power bombarded his sturdy body. The terrifying destructive force, facing Pan Yan's physical body, invaded at a surprisingly slow speed, as if his muscles were hard rocks. After a full 10 breaths, his flesh and blood became charred black, and the destructive force was less than 30%. The bone treasure in his body directly withstood it and did not suffer much damage. In terms of bone defense alone, the earth attribute bone treasure engraved with a sturdy array was much stronger than Huang Xiaoyun. What's more, Pan Yan had the body of thick earth, and the power of the earth attribute was better. Just as he was absorbing the life force to restore his demonic energy, Lu Kuan's voice suddenly came into his ear. The next lightning tribulation will be blessed with the vitality of heaven and earth, and the power will skyrocket. Find a way to fully exert the defensive characteristics of your bone treasure. Pan Yan was slightly stunned and immediately reacted. Huang Xiaoyan's last blow, just now, seemed to be channeling the power of the sword treasure through the origin force. Then he could also use the power of the earth attribute bone treasure on the surface of his body. Thinking of this, the bone treasures in Pan Yan's body lit up one by one. Its demonic energy was formed by the fusion of earth attribute mana and qi mana, and it also contained a strong earth attribute. After activating the bone treasure, an incomparably heavy aura appeared on the sturdy array. Just by activating these bone treasures, Pan Yan's aura skyrocketed, like a towering mountain, emitting an incomparably heavy aura. This layer of defensive power seems to be unable to be mobilized, and can only be added to the sturdy array. It needs to be absorbed and transferred to the surface of the body with the help of the origin force of the body to fully exert the defensive power of the earth attribute bone treasure. More than 200 bone treasures, the defensive power is too scattered, and the attack area of a lightning tribulation is vast. Even if these defensive powers are concentrated at one point, there will still be destructive power that escapes the net. That is to say, a defense without any blind spots. Pan Yan didn't know why, but he thought of the combination magic weapon that several of his fellow apprentices worked together to display, the meteorite star, and his eyes couldn't help but light up. He sat directly on the ground, bent his legs, hugged his knees with his hands, and his head was sandwiched between his two knees. The head and tail of his sturdy body were connected, forming a round meatball. The origin force of his body circulated in the inner and outer circle. Rumble. The sky exploded with a shocking sound of thunder. This fifth lightning tribulation was also a lightning ball, but it was larger than the previous one. In addition to the destructive power of the peak of the middle nascent soul stage, it also carried a thick halo. It can be said that the attack of this lightning tribulation was close to the attack of a great cultivator. Any early nascent soul stage cultivator would probably be turned into ashes. 1. Pan Yan's meatball body directly rotated under the effect of the origin force field. The distance between the inner circle of the body was less than 2 feet. Under the compression of the origin force field, a high-speed, rotating origin force vortex was formed. The outer circle of the meatball also had a layer of origin force field revolving, but it didn't form a vortex. Instead, it circulated close to the surface of the skin. The earth attribute defensive treasure light in Pan Yan's body was absorbed by the inner circle's origin force vortex. Then, under the interaction of the inner and outer circle's origin force fields, it circulated to the outer circle's skin, forming a layer of dark yellow treasure light that surged with flowing light. The terrifying lightning ball, which was close to the power of a great cultivator, directly slammed into the rotating meatball. Terrifying waves of qi rolled in all directions, and the surrounding mountain rocks were shaved off by several feet. The astonishing destructive power constantly flashed on the surface of the rapidly rotating meatball. The origin force revolving outside the meatball, in addition to diverting the earth attribute defensive treasure light, could also divert the destructive power of the lightning tribulation. As long as Pan Yan still had demonic energy in his body, the earth attribute treasure light would continuously support him. After several dozen breaths of time, the resplendent lightning gradually dissipated, and the rotating meatball body also stopped. The surface of his body was only slightly charred black, and the terrifying power of the lightning tribulation didn't even penetrate his flesh. Pan Yan's body staggered, and he sat down on the ground. A rich life force flowed into his body. Chapter 1061. When Yu Longfei saw that Huang Xiaoyan had successfully passed the thunder tribulation, he left silently. Lu Kuan floated in the air as the dark tribulation clouds slowly dispersed around him. He poured the newly collected worldly liquid into the battle treasure and arrived at Zhao Qingtian's broken cave residence in a flash. He waved his hand, and an invisible force surged around him. Pieces of broken bones gathered in front of him. He took out a mirror box and stored them inside. Lu Kuan's mood had calmed down. Cultivation was a path that defied the heavens. Even he could not guarantee that he would be able to break through smoothly, let alone the disciples of the body refining pavilion. What he could do now was to calm down and summarize so that the other disciples would not take the wrong path. Lu Kuan put away the brocade box and sighed. I didn't expect the energy level of qi and blood to be so high. Qing Tian's poison wood was only a little weaker than the mutant attribute, but it was no match for qi and blood. It seems that qi and blood also refined the poison in his body. In turn, it used the poison attribute to devour the mature bone treasure. Sigh, if Qing Tian's magic level was equal to qi and blood, he might have a chance. Then he flew up and landed at the entrance of Sher Chow's temporary cave residence. Invisible waves of qi rolled forward and broke open the entrance of the cave residence, revealing the scene inside. There was no one in the secret room. In the middle of the room, there were two crystal clear ice swords. A few feet away, there was a pool of dark red blood. Lu Kuan's expression was heavy. He reached out and grabbed the two ice swords in his hand. Then, the two ice swords buzzed and trembled, letting out spiritual sounds as if they had met their loved ones. Lu Kuan was shocked by this situation. He used his divine sense to explore the swords. At the same time, his eyes bloomed with golden light. He found that the internal structure of the ice swords was not like a magic treasure at all. There was a lot of blood essence and bone essence in it. The internal structure was somewhat similar to a bone treasure. Moreover, in the depths of the ice swords, there was an extremely spiritual consciousness. It was exuding waves of joy and seemed to be very close to Lu Kuan. Shui. Lu Kuan didn't stop calling out with his spiritual awareness, but the spiritual awareness didn't seem to understand him. It was still jumping around inside the ice sword. After observing it several times, he showed a pained expression. Although this spiritual sense had some of Sher Chow's aura, there was no spiritual soul. Obviously, this female disciple of his had fallen. The flesh, blood, and bone essence inside doesn't contain any demonic energy. I'm afraid that when Shui was in danger, she wanted to transfer her body and soul into the frost sword. However, when a body cultivator integrates their bodies, their spirit and bone treasure are closely linked. When the bone treasure disappears, the spirit will also disappear. This spiritual perception is probably the product of the combination of the residual energy of his god soul and the frost sword. It's similar to an artifact spirit. Lu Kuan took out another mirror case and carefully put away the pair of swords. He then looked at the pool of dark red liquid on the ground. Qi, blood, and demonic energy can help to integrate the body, but this energy has an extremely strong greedy instinct. It also wants to devour the entire body and enter a deeper level. However, after devouring the qi, blood, and demonic energy, without a physical body, can't avoid the fate of extinction. He stretched out his right hand, and a pale silver vortex appeared not far away. It sucked the pool of liquid into it and crushed it into nothingness. Then, it flew toward Yu Xian's cave. After walking into this temporary cave, Lu Kuan's expression changed slightly. In his field of vision, there was an empty cave. Not to mention Yu Xian, there wasn't even a shadow of qi, blood, and demonic energy. Hey, there's something below. His spiritual awareness was very strong. Suddenly, he felt that the temperature of the ground under his feet was a little different, as if there was something with high temperature lurking. So he stretched out his hand, and a terrifying origin force field covered the ground in front of him. After a while, a blood-red flame emerged. Wrapped in an invisible force field, it slowly fell on his palm. This is the primordial yang, earth fire? Lu Kuan's eyes showed some contemplation. There was indeed the aura of the primordial yang, earth fire in the flame. It was also mixed with a demonic aura. It seemed to be a strange and demonic flame. If he wanted to refine this kind of strange flame, he was afraid that he would need demonic energy, not demonic energy. Thinking of this, Lu Kuan suddenly understood something. He sighed softly. The qi, blood, and demonic energy disappeared without a trace. This flame is probably born from burning the essence of flesh and blood. I didn't expect you to still want to help the future generation of disciples when you failed to break through. If Li Qianfeng refines this demonic flame, his cultivation speed will increase a lot during the bone treasure period. However, with the characteristics of high-grade energy like qi, blood, and demonic energy, his chances of breaking through with body-refining demonic energy are even slimmer. A piece of broken dragonstone powder appeared in Lu Kuan's hand and collected the primordial yang earth fire. At this time, Huang Xiaoyun and Pan Yin had finished absorbing the life force and completely entered the bone treasure period. They arrived outside Yu Xian's cave. The two looked at the empty cave and couldn't help but show a sorrowful expression. In just over a month, only the two of them were left among the five of them. Lu Kuan looked at the expressions of the two disciples and said in a deep voice, "Immortal cultivation is against the heavens, not to mention that we are body cultivators. Even if it's me, I may fall in a breakthrough of a certain realm." Qing Tian and the others have laid down more experience for the future generation of disciples, leaving behind the most precious wealth. You have entered the bone transformation tool realm. What you need to do now is to open up a more perfect path for the future generation of disciples. Huang Xiaoyan and Pan Yin looked serious. "Yes, Master. Tell me about your breakthrough process." Next, Huang Xiaoyan and Pan Yin talked about the whole process of refining their own bodies and generating the source power of the flesh. After Lu Kuan listened, he frowned and said, "It seems that the risk of the two of you breaking through is also great. If you don't have a special physique, I'm afraid you won't succeed." Xiaoyun's demonic old body allows the sword intense spiritual power to compete with the qi and blood demonic power, forming a balance between the two, preventing the qi and blood demonic power from devouring the part of the refined bone treasure. And Xiaoyan, your solid earth body makes the bone treasure extremely hard. Even the qi and blood demonic power of the peak core formation stage will take a very long time to devour it. Lu Kuan paused for a moment before concluding, "The bone transformation stage is a body cultivator's checkpoint. It seems that there are two great risks. One is to refine your own body and generate the source power of the flesh. In this process, while ensuring the speed of self-refinement, the bone treasure spiritual power must have the strength to compete with the qi and blood demonic power, or it can use other means to prevent the qi and blood demonic power from devouring the refined bone treasure. If the bone treasure is damaged, even if the source power of the flesh is generated, the strength will be greatly reduced, and the probability of surviving the lightning tribulation is extremely low. And the second obstacle is naturally the lightning tribulation of heaven and earth. From what I've observed, the lightning tribulation of body cultivation is closely related to one's physique." When Huang Xiaoyan heard this, he understood a little and asked, "Is it the range of the source power field?" Lu Kuan nodded and said, "Yes, a 3-star physique is 1 foot of source power field. A 6-star physique is 2 feet. The higher the physique, the wider the range. If the range of the source power field is less than 2 feet, most body cultivation battle techniques will be difficult to use. Without the help of battle techniques, the lightning tribulation that contains the qi of heaven and earth is almost impossible to pass. But the larger the range of the source power field, the higher the physique, and the more lightning tribulation there will be. The power of the last bolt will be even more terrifying. Even with the assistance of battle techniques, it will be very difficult. The two of you were able to pass the lightning tribulation so easily. In addition to the use of battle techniques, you also relied on your special physiques." Huang Xiaoyan was slightly stunned. Pan Yan's physique had the effect of strengthening the earth attribute, but his physique did not seem to have any effect on the lightning tribulation. Lu Kuan explained, "The extremely condensed sword qi you used instantly annihilated the demonic attribute in the lightning tribulation, causing its energy to be unbalanced and the qi of heaven and earth to collapse. Coupled with the destructive power of the second explosion, it was destroyed in one blow. The range of the source power field of the two of you is narrow, so it is difficult to use battle techniques. What you need most now is to refine the unique weapon of the bone transformation stage body cultivation, the battle treasure. Follow me. I will teach you the refining method of the body cultivation battle treasure. After speaking, Lu Kuan turned into a treasure light and flew in the direction of the Yunling mountain range. Chapter 1062. After more than 120 years of development, the body refining pavilion had become very lively. There were constantly cultivators shuttling back and forth in the mountain range. Most of them were body cultivators who practiced the body refining technique. Only a small number of them were traditional cultivators of the treasure pavilion. The body refining pavilion occupied the entire Wei kingdom and spread to the neighboring Jin kingdom. Not to mention the number of mortal martial artists, there were also many disciples with spirit roots. Lu Kuan intimidated the surrounding cultivators and sealed the border to prevent cultivators from other countries from entering. The body refining pavilion had been developing silently for so many years and had grown at an astonishing speed. Now, there were two more nascent soul cultivators. With the strength of bone transformation stage body cultivators, Huang Xiaoyan and the others were equivalent to nascent soul middle stage cultivators. The body refining pavilion had a total of 12 nascent soul stage cultivators. In addition, several second-generation disciples had entered the bone treasure stage. The number of body refining stage body cultivators was even more astonishing. Compared to the opening ceremony, the number of body cultivators had almost doubled. In these years, most of the body cultivators had experienced the chaotic environment of the West Prefecture of Qi Kingdom. Under the same realm, body cultivators were completely superior to cultivators. The poison refining pavilion, under the guise of the Holy Poison Sect, had greatly expanded its sphere of influence with the help of this group of body cultivators. In the body refining pavilion, the place with the most disciples was not the mission hall, but a place called the Lava Cave. More than 100 years ago, Lu Kuan brought back the essence of the mystical fire from the Chu Kingdom. With the help of the treasure pavilion and several nascent soul cultivators, they spent a lot of resources to refine a giant furnace. The furnace was divided into 4 levels. The top level was the widest, surrounded by hundreds of dragon mouths, each corresponding to a crafting room. The power of the flames inside was equivalent to the mana real fire of the beginner level of foundation establishment. The disciples of the body refinery pavilion only needed to activate the control token with their divine sense, and they could use the pure flames here to refine magic items. The furnace became narrower as it went down, but the power of the flames became stronger. The token on the second floor required a foundational level cultivator to activate. The third floor required a completion level cultivator. As for the bottom floor, it was the place where the 5 deviant flames were stored. There was only one crafting room here. In this room, Lu Kuan was explaining the refining method of battle treasures to his 2 disciples. Huang Xiaoyan and Pan Yan's gazes were focused, and their breaths were steady. The dead were already gone, and the living were still here. The 2 of them had witnessed the fall of their senior brothers and sisters, and their hearts for body refinement and immortality cultivation became even more firm. In order to solve this problem, I refined the core of the battle treasure into the structure of the spine. On Lu Kuan's palm, a gray piece of meat that looked like a head slowly floated. After the modification of this genuine brick, not only can it transmit the life force, it can also store part of the divine sense. Even if it is thrown out of the range of the void power, it can still be returned through the divine sense and the remaining demon energy inside. Although this method is wonderful, it still has a flaw. Do you know what it is? Huang Xiaoyan pondered and said, the amount of life force is closely related to the demon energy. If this kind of energy given by the heavenly tribulation is injected into the battle treasure, the demon energy storage in the body will be greatly reduced. Demon energy is like the spiritual power of a cultivator. It is the root of maintaining the battle. If it is exhausted, the original power of the body will lose its energy, and part of the life force will be divided into the battle treasure, which will reduce the continuous combat power of the body refiner. Lu Kuan nodded gently. He sensed the milky white liquid in the depths of the genuine brick and said slowly, I didn't expect this flaw to be solved by the worldly plasma. With it, there is no need to inject life force into the battle treasure. You only need to convert some demon energy into it through the body. This kind of battle treasure is the most perfect treasure for the bone transformation realm body refiner. The existence of the worldly plasma stabilizes the demon energy outside the body and reduces the destructive power to a minimum. And this destructive power causes very little damage to the battle treasure. The demon energy in the battle treasure can easily repair it, and it can fight for a long time. Lu Kuan looked at the two and said, That's about it. What kind of battle treasure do you want to refine? Master will help you inscribe the corresponding elemental spirit array. Huang Xiaoyun's eyes flashed with a sharp light. He clenched his fist and said, Disciple wants to refine a pair of short swords. Although the power of the fist heart sword is terrifying, it has a certain casting time. It is not as easy as Master's battle skills. If the method of condensing the power of sharpness and releasing the original power is transferred to a pair of sword bone short sword battle treasures, then Disciple's attack will be even fiercer. Lu Kuan heard this and didn't say anything. He looked at Pan Yin and asked, Lilian, what about you? Pan Yin scratched his head and said, Disciple will do the same as before. I will make a shield magic treasure to maximize my defensive power. Lu Kuan was silent for a moment and asked another question. Do you think battle skills or battle treasures are more important? Huang Xiaoyun and Pan Yin were stunned at first, but then they said in unison, battle skills, of course. For traditional cultivators, it might be hard to tell which was more powerful, the magical power or the magic treasure, but for body refiners, there was only one answer. The core of a body refiner was their own body. Battle skills were the product of the combination of the physical body and the original power. Battle treasures were not only external objects, but the elemental spirit array inside came from battle skills. Without battle skills, there would be no battle treasures. Lu Kuan nodded and said, Battle treasures are only tools to make up for the lack of battle power. The most important thing is the battle skills that you have honed yourself. He looked at Huang Xiaoyun, the disciple with the sharp aura, and said, Since you have comprehended the fist heart sword and understand its flaws, then why do you want to use battle treasures to assist you instead of thinking about how to improve your battle skills? The sharpness of the sword treasures doesn't necessarily have to be released. It can be condensed on the surface of the physical body through the use of original power. For example, the hands and feet. Together with the physical body's attack speed, the explosive power is several times stronger than that of traditional sword cultivators. Relying too much on battle treasures will only cause your battle skills to stagnate. They should be used in relatively weak areas. The range of your original power field is small, so it is difficult to form an original power vortex on the surface of your body. Together with the sharp array carved on the bone treasures, your physical defense is the lowest among the three of us. It is more suitable to make a defensive battle treasure. Lu Kuan sprinkled a piece of dragon-breaking stone powder. Under the effect of his void power, it gradually formed an outline. A spine slowly took shape. Then on both sides of the spine, curved ribs gushed out like the bones of a human's back. Finally, on these bones, the shape of layers of muscles appeared, turning into a strange oval meat shield. At this moment, Lu Kuan turned around. On his broad back, 6 silver vortexes appeared, distributed on both sides of his spine. This defensive battle treasure doesn't have the defensive array of an immortal cultivator. It only has a sturdy array and an original power vortex. At most, it can activate 6 original power vortexes to absorb a large amount of energy attacks. By using the battle treasure to strengthen the weakness, Xiao Yun, you can focus most of your energy on studying sword skills. Hearing this, Huang Xiaoyun understood what his master meant. Although his talent was not bad compared to his master, it was too far away. Lu Kuan could study many battle skills, but he couldn't. He had to focus all his energy and time on one thing. Lu Kuan then looked at Pan Yin and said, "As for Xiao Yin, you have to continue to perfect your defensive battle skills. As for the weakness of your lack of attack power, you can make up for it with the battle treasure. In these years, I have perfected the whirlpool finger to every finger, forming a whirlpool claw battle skill. In addition to its amazing penetrating power, when the 5 fingers are combined, it can also produce a terrifying binding power. If you can refine this battle skill into a pair of gloves, not only will it increase your attack power, but will also allow you to bind your opponent." Lu Kuan waved his hand, and a dark purple skeleton and a pile of materials that were flickering with a demonic light appeared on the ground. He said slowly, "Master will guide you in the refining process for the next few details of the battle treasure." Huang Xiaoyun and Pan Yin looked serious and said, "Yes, Master." Chapter 1063. 2 months later, at the bottom of the lava cave in the body refining pavilion, a few strange weapons were floating in the middle of the room. One of them was a gray shield that was 5 feet tall and 2 feet wide. Gray muscle lines were intertwined on it, and there was a flow of early core formation stage magic power flowing inside. The gray muscle pulsated from time to time, giving people a very strange feeling, as if this meat shield was some kind of deformed creature. Next to the meat shield was a pair of gloves that looked like palms. They were twice the size of a normal human hand, and there were gray palm lines intertwined on them. Between the thick fingers, the joints could be seen, and there was a flow of magic power flowing inside. In addition to these 2 weapons, there was also a 7-foot-long bone. One end was pale white, while the other was gray. Other than the 2 ends of the bone being round, there was a thick bone in the middle that resembled a vertebra. The 2 round skulls were quite heavy, and the spine was like a pole that carried a heavy object, bent in an arc. This strange object was not covered by gray muscle, and there was no magic power inside, so it did not look like a weapon. The 6-origin shield and the whirlpool bone claw have fused with the essence of your flesh and blood, and there is magic power and worldly lava inside, which is enough to make up for your shortcomings. Put them away first, and when the magic power inside has completely refined them, you can use them in battle. Huang Xiaoyun and Pan Yin couldn't wait to take the 2 treasures into their hands and participate in the refinement process. They were very clear about the power of these 2 treasures. In fact, they were even more powerful than what their master had said. Lu Kuan reached out and took the 2-headed spine in his hand, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Although the worldly lava he had absorbed did not seem to be much, it was enough to support the refining of 4 battle treasures. Except for the vibrating yuan brick and the 2 weapons of his disciples, he had refined the rest into the object in front of him. This was the energy storage magic treasure that Lu Kuan had thought of all kinds of methods to refine, but he had not been able to refine it. Now, he had added a spine structure to the 2-headed skull. This structure could not only store divine sense, but also allow the magic power to be in a more stable semi-separated state. With the worldly lava, the magic power could be stored in a stable state. And to absorb the magic power, he only needed to hold the spine joint in the middle, and with the help of the divine sense inside, he could quickly absorb the magic power. Lu Kuan did a simple test. This thick, double-headed spine could store at least 30% of mana. After fiddling with it for a while, he put it away and looked at the 2 disciples. The bottleneck of the bone transformation stage is not high for body cultivators. But for the body refining pavilion to become truly powerful, there must be enough bone transformation stage body cultivators. Huang Xiaoyan and Pan Yin perked up. It sounded like their master had a way to increase their chances of breaking through. Lu Kuan went on to say, no matter how high one's aptitude is, there is still some risk in the bone transformation stage. The difficulty of breaking through this stage is even higher than the nascent soul stage in the traditional immortal cultivation system. To ensure the number of bone transformation stage cultivators, one must have enough bone treasures and body cultivators. He needed to spend the time on his own cultivation and perfecting the follow-up exercises. Moreover, He couldn't think of a good way to increase the chances of breaking through to the bone transformation stage in a short time. And that disciple of the spirit transforming pavilion, called Xiangshan, seemed to have just entered the bone tempering stage. When that kid entered the blood condensation stage, there would be progress in the secret technique of transforming into a half-demon body. Under uncertain circumstances, Lu Kuan could only use the stupidest method, which was to pile up numbers. If one of the 5 body cultivators with bone treasures could break through, then the base number of 50 would mean that there would be 10 bone transformation stage body cultivators. With the existence of the poison refining pavilion, the muscle refining to viscera forging stage resources are quite abundant. But for the bone treasure stage, poison has lost its effect. The cultivation of blood demon requires the activation of true demon intent, and the cultivation process requires a lot of pure demon chi. In another 100 years, the second and third generations of disciples will have all grown up. At that time, the body refining pavilion will have an explosion of bone treasure stage body cultivators. This demon abyss won't be enough to share. At this point, Lu Kuan's eyes revealed a cold light. When these 2 battle treasures are refined, select a group of disciples and go to the Qi Kingdom's West Province. Master will also arrange for Feng Yuan and her brother to go with them. Within 30 years, we must seize the Demon Dragon Mountain. Huang Xiaoyan and Pan Yin heard this and quickly understood. In the past few years, the Demon Dragon Mountain had a strange phenomenon. It was rumored that a devil pool was about to appear. Obviously, the body refining pavilion wanted to take that place for themselves. Huang Xiaoyan hesitated and said, "Master, if the 3 demon sects make a move." Lu Kuan coldly snorted and said, "The alliance contract between the body refining pavilion and the blood refining pavilion is mainly limited to the South Province and Wei Kingdom. The Qi Kingdom's West Province is not included. If the 3 demon sects' nascent soul stage cultivators make a move, you don't have to worry. Just kill them. If the great cultivators behind them make a move, Master will personally make a trip. Go make the arrangements. If there is anything, just send a message through the 1,000-mile talisman." "Yes, Master." After arranging the tasks, Lu Kuan returned to the cave residence in the depths of the demon abyss. He took out the relics of several disciples and solemnly placed them in the center of the treasure house. He closed his eyes and stood quietly in front of them. After an unknown period of time, Lu Kuan opened his eyes and exhaled. His expression became more focused. The death of his disciples made him feel depressed, but more importantly, he experienced the difficulties of cultivation. Breaking through the bottleneck of the bone transformation stage was dangerous, and the bottleneck after the bone transformation stage was equally difficult. It had been more than 120 years since he returned to Wei Kingdom from the Chu Kingdom. The life essence extracted from the body of the level 10 demon cultivator had been exhausted. He had barely cultivated to the peak of the early bone transformation stage. Without the help of the life essence, even if he perfected the cultivation method of this small realm, it would take him 300 to 400 years. Now the life force in his body was extremely rich, more than twice as much as when he first entered the bone transformation stage. No matter how he cultivated, this energy could not continue to grow. However, the life force that his internal organs could hold increased a lot. Even under the cultivation of this energy, his internal organs seemed to be somewhat different from before. It was not an improvement in quality, but another kind of change. However, Lu Kuan did not know what this change was. His focus was on other parts of the body. His muscles and blood had changed a lot after more than 100 years of cultivation. The former's quality had greatly increased, but when the muscles contracted, the degree of hardness was still a little lower than a mature magic treasure. The density of his blood had also reached a terrifying level. If he released all the power of Qi and blood, even a level 10 Demon King would be inferior. However, the cultivation of his muscles and blood was now stuck. No matter how he tempered them, they could not grow at all. Lu Kuan slowly walked into the Rong Yuan Demon Cave and raised his right arm. A silver light surged in his muscles. After a while, his arm trembled and the silver light gradually dissipated. He sighed. Although the life force is enough, the strength of my flesh is still a little lacking. There is no way to store demon energy. Now my demon energy storage can be said to be about the same as Little Yun and the others. Next, a terrifying surge of blood energy gushed out from Lu Kuan's body, and his muscles became even more robust. They had even turned dark red in color, flashing with a layer of crystalline luster. It was as though his entire body was a treasure. His body relaxed and returned to its original state. He frowned. The blood could be said to have completely merged with the muscles. Although the two can be interchanged, it is different from what I thought before. In a battle state, the two cannot be added together. If a part of the blood turns into muscle fibers and adds to the muscles, a part of the muscles will turn into blood and return to the body. Only after the life force is separated from the demon energy can the two be completely transferred. The key to the breakthrough seems to be in the muscles and blood. Thinking of this, a double-headed spine appeared in Lu Kuan's hand, and the surrounding pure spiritual energy and demonic aura began to converge. As he pondered, he injected his demonic energy into this energy-storing artifact, L0NS3v3. Chapter 1064. Ever since Lu Kuan participated in the War of Chu, rumors about the body refining pavilion began to spread in the cultivation world of Chu. Some people said that the body refining pavilion was terrifyingly powerful, with at least 20 to 30 nascent soul cultivators and numerous disciples. It was an ancient immortal sect. Some people scoffed, thinking that the body refining pavilion was just a facade. If it had many disciples, why didn't they see any body cultivators walking around in the cultivation world of Chu? As more and more rumors about the body refining pavilion spread, many rogue cultivators and cultivation clans had some thoughts about entering Wei to cultivate. After all, the Xiuan state was occupied by the demon clan, and the 10 great sects occupied most of the resources. In such a large place like Wei, there was only one sect, so at least there was some soup to drink. When these people passed through the land of death, they found that the body refining pavilion had set up a restriction at the border between Chu and Wei. If they wanted to enter Wei, they had to set up a tracking technique on their body, and they couldn't stay for long. This rule made these people curse in their hearts. There was even a nascent soul rogue cultivator who wanted to break through the formation, but after a few rounds, his nascent soul fled after being beaten by Serene. From then on, no cultivator dared to barge into the border. In the middle of the land of death, there was a narrow canyon, which was densely covered with ancient restrictions. This was the famous one-line sky. In the depths of the ground, there was a cave that was filled with cold yin-chi. A beautiful woman sat cross-legged on a jade cattail. Streams of spirit chi and cold yin-chi poured into her moist gray skin. Her whole body emitted an extremely cold yin-chi, as if it could freeze people's hearts. This woman was Lu Kuan's silver-armored corpse, Serene. At this time, her aura was incomparably deep, and the fluctuations she emitted had even reached the peak of the early nascent soul stage. If Lu Kuan was here, he would be very surprised. An ordinary 8th grade silver-armored corpse would need hundreds of years to cultivate to the peak of the 8th grade, even with sufficient cold yin-chi. His silver-armored corpse only took a little more than 100 years. The main reason was Lu Kuan's blood essence. When a nascent soul stage cultivator tried to control a silver-armored corpse, no matter what kind of mind control technique they used, their soul would be eroded by the bloodthirsty intent of the silver-armored corpse after a certain period of time. Only by feeding the silver-armored corpse their own blood essence would they be able to eliminate this effect. Therefore, most of the experts who controlled corpses were all skin and bones, and their blood essence was in a state of deficiency. But Lu Kuan was different. His blood was more than 100 times stronger than these nascent soul cultivators. Every time, Serene used her corpse core to absorb it, not only would her spiritual altar and divine sense become clear, but her corporeal body would also undergo subtle changes. In particular, the essence blood that Lu Kuan had given her last time was close to the peak of the early stage of bone transformation. Serene felt that after refining it, not only was her body stronger, but even her dantian and meridians were no different from an immortal cultivator's. Furthermore, she had absorbed Shun Mingyao's essence blood and inherited her extreme body. Her efficiency of converting yin qi had increased by 50 to 60%. This was the reason why her cultivation speed was so astonishing. After an unknown period of time, Serene slowly opened her eyes and stretched. Her graceful figure didn't seem like a zombie's body at all. As she slowly stood up, Serene suddenly let out a soft cry, as if she had discovered something. She looked down at her body. She tilted her head and blinked twice. A rich power of blood rose up from her body, and a layer of pale silver light appeared on her moist skin. The temperature in the cave suddenly dropped a lot. She touched it with her slender hand and found that this layer of light was incomparably hard. It was like a layer of silver armor covering her skin. In addition to the power of yin qi, it was also filled with the power of blood essence and corpse qi. Interesting, after refining the Pavilion Master's essence blood, such a strange supernatural ability was born. Through the operation of the essence blood, I can draw out all the corpse qi in my body and form a corpse qi armor. After the corpse qi is expelled, the body's speed and reaction speed greatly increase. This layer of armor also enhances the defense. Serene rolled her eyes. With a thought, the layer of corpse qi armor disappeared. At the same time, the extremely cold aura also dissipated, as if it had been hidden away. After experimenting several times, Serene was a little excited. If it was done in reverse, the essence blood could hide all the energy of the body in the corpse core, and the aura would be like that of a mortal. At this moment, Serene's expression turned cold, and she snorted. After so many years, there are still nascent soul cultivators who want to sneak in a way. They are really courting death. With a flash of gray light, Serene disappeared from the cave. On the east side of the Land of Death, there was a barrier of the Sky Sword Pavilion. On the west side of the Eastern Pool State, there was an incomparably prosperous city of cultivators. Yiyang City. Although the body refining pavilion had sealed the border, it did not cut off contact with the cultivation world of Chu. Under the leadership of Lu Kuan and the Taoyi sect, the body refining pavilion and the 10 great sects of Chu had jointly established this huge market. For the 10 great sects of Chu, some resources could be sold to those rogue cultivators and cultivator families, which could ease a lot of conflicts. Moreover, through this market city, they could also exchange for resources of Wei. For the body refining pavilion, if the cultivators of Chu wanted to enter Wei, they could buy things in Yiyang City. There was no need to barge in. In addition, the refining techniques of the treasure tool pavilion were also useful. Many special refining techniques that had been shelved by the Yiyang clan were also reactivated. In the past few decades, the treasure tool pavilion speed of earning spirit stones had far surpassed that of the Yiyang clan. Yiyang City was guarded by a nascent soul sword cultivator all year round. It was not far from Serene's cave, which was equivalent to having 2 nascent soul cultivators guarding it. Even if the treasure tool pavilion earned a lot of spirit stones, no one dared to have any ideas. Outside Yiyang City, 2 men stood in the void. One of the men was waving a green feather fan with a green wind circling under his feet. He was handsome and was Qin Yushu of the treasure tool pavilion. The other square-faced man was wearing a brocade robe. His whole body exuded an incomparably strong metal aura. One could even hear the sound of a strong army in his body. He was the person with the highest cultivation in the treasure tool pavilion, Xiao Hongfei. Qin Yushu showed some envy and said, "I didn't expect the secret technique of the Golden Spear sect to be so helpful to Brother Xiao. I'm afraid Brother Xiao will soon enter the nascent soul stage." Xiao Hongfei heard and said with a serious expression, "I'm only 60% sure. The probability of failure is still not small." Qin Yushu smiled. I'm still a bit away from the peak, but for the nascent soul stage, I'm less than 30% sure. Brother Zhao's chances are already very high. Xiao Hongfei was silent for a while and said with a sincere gaze, "Thank you for your help this time, Brother Qin. Otherwise, the Golden Spear sect wouldn't have used such a secret technique in exchange. After I succeed, I will definitely share my enlightenment with Brother Qin." Qin Yushu's expression turned serious, and he clasped his hands. "You and I are both disciples of the Treasure Tool Pavilion. There's no need to be so distant. I wish Brother Xiao a smooth breakthrough. Thank you for your kind words." Then, Xiao Hongfei turned into a ray of light and flew towards the direction of the land of death. After a while, Qin Yushu returned to Yiyang City. Xiao Hongfei's spiritual energy was very pure. His speed was much faster than a normal completion level cultivator. Like a golden ray of light, he flew rapidly in the dark sky of the land of death. Although my spiritual sense isn't weak, my inner demon illusions can't be underestimated. To be safe, I should ask the pavilion master for a string of demon soulwood. Suddenly, Xiao Hongfei seemed to sense something. His expression wildly changed, and a golden bracelet shot out from his neck and limbs, turning into 5 diamond bracelets that blocked in front of him. As soon as he finished doing all this, a large green hand appeared out of thin air in front of him. It surged with a terrifying spiritual pressure. His set of magic weapons was like a toy and was easily sent flying. Then, he was trapped by the large hand of spiritual light. The mana in his body seemed to have met its nemesis and retreated back into the golden core. At that moment, a white-haired old man appeared in front of him and said, "I didn't think that after so many years, you would reach nascent soul stage." When Xiao Hongfei saw this person, his eyes suddenly widened with fear. His voice trembled as he said, "You are..." The old man chuckled and was about to speak when his expression suddenly changed. A jade talisman appeared in his hand, and he said with amazement, "The ghost spirit sect cultivator was beaten back so quickly. Could this woman be at mid-nascent soul stage? No, we can't stay here for long." The old man waved his sleeve, and Xiao Hongfei directly fainted. Then, with a strange fluctuation, the two disappeared without trace. Chapter 1065. The ancestor of body cultivators has no updates today, 2 updates tomorrow. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1066. Cloud Ridge Mountain Range, deep in the Devil Abyss. Lu Kuan sat cross-legged in the Rong Yuan Devil Cave, looking at his pair of arms with burning eyes. An amazing power of qi and blood was rising on them, and the muscles contracted violently. Like a coiled python, the ferocious muscles sometimes doubled in size and sometimes shrank by half. A layer of black hair occasionally appeared on the surface of the skin. Recently, Lu Kuan had been thinking about how to break through the bottleneck of the early stage of bone change. Now that his life force was abundant, but the strength of his muscles was a little lacking. If he forced the magical energy into his muscles, even if his muscles were in a tight state, they wouldn't be able to bear it. Not to mention that his muscles couldn't be improved with the power of destruction. Even if he could, Lu Kuan wouldn't do it. For muscles, hardness wasn't the only characteristic. Toughness was equally important. Soft as cotton and hard as iron. This had always been Lu Kuan's definition of flesh and blood. The burst of power was a process of muscle fibers stretching and relaxing. If the flexibility wasn't enough, the power couldn't be exerted. Through the tempering of the power of destruction and the nurturing of the power of life, the hardness and flexibility of the muscles had been improved to the current level. But the last step was best to break through both at the same time. If the hardness reached the mature level first, the power of life couldn't nurture the remaining toughness, and the loss would be great. To achieve this, Lu Kuan thought of the breakthrough direction was the transformation and fusion of blood and muscles. Long before the bone change stage, his body had achieved the fusion of flesh and blood. At that time, part of the essence of other muscle fibers was transferred to one place through the blood, thereby enhancing the strength of the local muscles. At this time, he was studying the fusion of flesh and blood, but it was different. It was to transform the blood into muscle fibers, and then fuse with the original muscles to achieve the effect of improving the quality of the material. This was equivalent to a cultivator fusing two kinds of spiritual power of the same origin to improve the quality of the spiritual power. It was just that Lu Kuan used muscles and blood. When he just entered the bone change stage, although the body was integrated, and there was a certain connection between the muscles, blood, organs, and bones that couldn't be transformed into each other. Muscles couldn't be transformed into blood, blood couldn't be transformed into organs, and organs couldn't be transformed into muscles. With the cultivation of the early stage of bone change, the muscles and blood could be transformed into each other. But when part of the blood was transformed into muscle fibers, the original muscle fibers would be squeezed out of the muscles and turned into blood. This condition was caused by tendons. The muscles of the body, strictly speaking, were called skeletal muscles. The tendons were the connection points between the skeletal muscles and the bones, and the number of muscle fibers was limited by the tendons. Even if the blood transformed into a large number of muscle fibers, they could not grow out of the tendons. If the blood was first converted into tendons and thickened, then the number of muscle fibers would be released. At this time, the blood was used to convert the muscle fibers, compressing and fusing with the original muscle fibers. This method wasn't a rigid tempering. It could simultaneously increase the hardness and flexibility of the muscles, completing the transformation of the muscle material and breaking through the bottleneck of the early stage of bone transformation. At this point, the difficult part was how to convert the blood into tendons. Wasn't the expansion of the tendons the same as the ability to connect the arms? As time passed, Lu Kuan continued to absorb the surrounding pure, demonic spiritual energy, constantly recovering the rapidly depleted blood essence in his body. If it was in the past, he wouldn't have been able to maintain the psychic giant arm for such a long period of time. Basically, he would only be able to use this ability in battle for a very short period of time. He would only be able to sense the circulation of the energy within and how to use the explosive power. Now that he was at the peak of the early stage of bone transformation, the concentration of blood essence in his body had greatly increased. Only in an environment like the Rong Yuan Devil Cave could he afford to maintain this ability. After a full 2 days, Lu Kuan opened his eyes. His expression was incomparably surprised. I didn't think that the essence of the psychic giant arm ability would be so helpful in breaking through this bottleneck. He discovered that the use of the psychic giant arm ability was essentially a transfer of blood essence energy. This ability was a use of blood essence energy, but the bloodline of the psychic giant arm ape made this use much simpler. When activating this ability, a unique bloodline fluctuation would surge out from the depths of the blood essence. It would surge towards the bones of the arms and the tendons on the surface of the bones. The latter would seem to be injected with some kind of energy, causing mutation. The bones would receive the support of energy and would be able to expand. As for the muscles, the tendons would first expand, and then the muscle fibers would also become thicker. After the body becomes whole, the entire body belongs to the same source of cells. The release of this bloodline fluctuation is essentially a transfer of blood essence energy. The tendons can be expanded, and so can the bones. This means that the blood can also be transformed into the bones. The early stage of bone transformation is the cultivation process of blood and muscles transforming into each other. Then, the middle stage of bone transformation is the transformation of blood and bones. If I continue to cultivate like this, wouldn't all the flesh and blood in the body be transformed into each other? Muscles into blood, blood into bones, and bones into blood. At the end of cultivation, I can even regenerate my body from a single drop of blood. Thinking of this, Lu Kuan couldn't help but laugh at himself. Regenerating from a single drop of blood is too exaggerated. Even if the bones of the mature period can turn into blood, how can I recover? Maybe my soul will directly die. He shook his head, putting away the messy thoughts in his mind, and returned to the original question. The blood essence change of a psychic giant arm ability doesn't increase the number of muscle fibers. It only makes them expand. What's useful to me is increasing the tendons. As long as I can find a way to transform the blood essence into the tendons, then I'm halfway to success. Lu Kuan took a deep breath, and the blood in his body surged. The muscles on his arms quickly dissipated, revealing the bare arm bones. A fierce fluctuation flashed, and the silver arm bones expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye, like two thick silver pillars. Gradually, a layer of blood vessels appeared on the bones of the silver arm. Clusters of silver blood emerged from the tendons attached to the bones, as if silver flowers were growing on the bones. After about half a day, the arm bones began to tremble, sometimes shortened, sometimes expanded, and the tendons on them were slightly twisted. The surrounding devil chi and spirit chi rushed into the depths of his bones, through the bone marrow cavity, and constantly restored his blood essence. With the passage of time, the arm bones finally returned to their original state, and the silver flowers on the tendon nodes were much larger than before. At this time, Lu Kuan suddenly stood up. In addition to the arms, the muscles and organs on the other parts of his body also condensed inwards, turning into a silver skeleton. The tendon flowers on the arm bones began to spread to other parts of his body, like stars, covering the starry sky of the silver skeleton in an instant. The surrounding spirit chi and devil chi became more and more turbulent, forming two layers of black and white spirit circles around him. Although he withdrew the psychic giant arm ability, the consumption of his blood essence did not decrease, but increased. After a while, on the surface of the bones, among the hundreds of tendon flowers, blood-red muscle fibers vaguely emerged like buds. They quickly grew, intertwining with each other, and formed thick and ferocious muscles. The number of all the muscle fibers had increased by as much as 50%. The trapezius muscles on his shoulders were like two mountains of flesh, protecting the silver skull. The pectoralis major muscles were bulging high, like two meatballs covered with blood-red lines. The latissima dorsi muscles at the back were like a pair of wings, and also like a turtle shell embedded in the back. Lu Kuan's entire body had turned into a deformed meatball monster. Chapter 1067. Within the borders of Wei country, there were two places where demonic beasts gathered. One was Qingzhou's Fallen Star Lake, where all kinds of spirit beasts lived. Gui Ling, or a level 8 demonic cultivator, slept at the bottom of the lake all year round. The other was Luzhou's spiritual mountain range. This mountain range was already very different from hundreds of years ago. It was full of vitality, and the forest was filled with the cries of various beasts and insects. Occasionally, there would be a few terrifying roars of ferocious beasts, startling flocks of birds. The place with the densest demonic aura was naturally the spiritual demon valley in the center. Most of the demonic aura in the mountain range spread out from here. Although there was no spiritual stone in the spiritual demon valley now, the demonic aura was not much weaker than before. There were two demonic ape races living here, the black mountain ape and the long-armed fire monkey. It was not known if it was because of the demonic aura left by the spiritual stone monkey, but it was much easier for the ape-type demonic beast to break through. In the past 100 years, the two races had developed at an astonishing speed. There were about 600 to 700 demonic apes that had entered the ranks of demonic beasts, and there were more than a dozen level 5 and above. In the middle of the valley, there was a medium-sized island in the middle of the lake. There were sparse trees growing on it. If one looked carefully, they would find that the tree trunks were surrounded by a layer of pale, yellow spiritual light, as if they were some kind of special spiritual wood. In the small forest, there was a dark cave, and a thick demonic aura was spreading out from it. In the depths of the cave, there was a dark yellow old tree. Only a section of the tree trunk was exposed, and the other branches and roots were buried in the mountain rocks. A gray cheetah with silver spots on its body was crouching under the tree. The demon's spiritual energy on its body was churning. It had already reached the pinnacle of level 6. Moreover, in the aura it exuded, there would occasionally be a frightening pressure. This silver-spotted leopard was Xiao Hui, who had followed them from the Yang clan. It was currently breaking through the bottleneck of level 7. Other than Xiao Hui, there were 2 apes, one big and one small, standing not far away. One of them was a black ape that was 10 feet tall and had a sturdy body. The other was a golden-haired monkey. Although it was smaller in size, it looked very sturdy. The most peculiar thing was that it had a pair of meatballs beside its ears. Its outline was no different from its ears, like a second pair of ears. They were the chief of the Black Mountain apes, Dahe, and Xiao Jin, who had the bloodline of the 6-eared macaque. Dahe's cultivation had already reached level 7. In addition to his amazing aptitude, the remaining demon chi in the spiritual demon valley and the demon soul wood were of great help. Xiao Jin cultivated Lu Kuan's body refining art. In addition to his top-notch aptitude, he had already reached the large success realm of bone treasure. Dahe scratched his head and looked at the silver-spotted leopard. Suddenly, he spoke in human language. "Young master, little Gray seems to be in some pain. There shouldn't be a problem with the breakthrough this time, right?" Xiao Jin seemed to be a little absent-minded as his ears twitched. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Hearing this, Dahe breathed a sigh of relief. That's true. The pavilion master gave him the demon core of a level 9 silver-spotted leopard. With the help of the demon core of the same origin, along with the rich demon chi and the demon soul wood, it's basically a cinch. Xiao Jin snorted and sat on the ground. Seeing little Gray's breakthrough, he thought of Zhao Qingtian and the other 2 first-generation disciples. He could not help but feel depressed. When the first-generation disciples were going through the tribulation, he was present. However, when the tribulation lightning appeared, Xiao Jin felt a deep sense of fear from his blood. He hid in Lu Kuan's spirit beast space. Even the tribulation lightning did not give him the feeling of being killed by the heavens and earth at any time. After the tribulation clouds dissipated, only Huang Xiaoyan and Pan Yin successfully passed the tribulation lightning. The other 3 either died under the tribulation lightning or were swallowed by the Qi and demon Qi. Looking at little Gray, who had a good relationship with Zhao Qingtian, Xiao Jin did not know what to say. He could not help but glance at Dahe beside him. Although the demon Qi in his body had reached the peak of level 7, he was still unable to speak. However, Dahe beside him could speak. Why not let this gorilla tell little Gray this news? After thinking for a long time, he sighed. He felt that it would be better if he said it himself. In fact, the little monkey still felt a little guilty. In the original arrangement, he should be the first to pass the tribulation. However, for some reason, when he sensed that he was about to pass the tribulation lightning, Xiao Jin felt as if it was the end of the world. His heart was incomparably terrified. Seeing this situation, Lu Kuan let him delay the breakthrough. The little monkey's situation was completely different from Zhao Qingtian and the others. He was a demon beast and had demon chi in his body. When a normal demon beast entered level 8, they needed to pass the tribulation lightning. When a physique cultivator entered the bone transformation stage, they also needed to pass the tribulation lightning. Although Xiao Jin did not have a demon pill in his body, he was still a demon beast. Would there be a double tribulation lightning? After thinking about it, Lu Kuan let the first-generation disciple break through first. Now, Lu Kuan did not want Xiao Jin to break through even more. The higher the physique, the more terrifying the tribulation lightning would be. Xiao Jin had a 9-star physique like him. With such a terrifying physique, coupled with the identity of a demon beast, the tribulation lightning would be similar to Lu Kuan's in the past. The little monkey did not have any lightning resistance. Its bones did not integrate with the silver dragon meteorite iron, so its resistance to the tribulation lightning was much weaker. Therefore, Lu Kuan let Xiao Jin stay in this realm. In any case, the lifespan of a demon beast was much longer than that of a human. Some of the top bloodlines of heaven and earth spirit beasts had lifespans 10 times that of cultivators of the same level. When he found some top demonic tools, he could help the little monkey pass the tribulation lightning. After all, Lu Kuan had not only the demon ape transformation, but also the heaven hammer. Squeak! Xiao Jin's heart stirred. He looked in the direction of the cloud Ridge mountain range. He did not know why, but he suddenly felt that the bloodline connection between him and Lu Kuan had become weak. In the depths of the cloud Ridge mountain range's demon abyss, inside the demon cave that was dozens of feet wide, a 3-foot-tall black demon ape crawled on the ground. Its fists and claws were as big as a small house, firmly clasping the ground. The incomparably hard demon merging stone was like tofu. The giant demon ape's eyes were filled with blood. It seemed to be enduring some kind of pain. Its muscles were abnormally thick like a mountain rock, and they were constantly trembling. Right below its chest was the location of the devil's pool. Waves of pure, true demonic chi continuously flowed into its chest. 9 pillars of spiritual chi shot out from the cave and blasted directly onto the devil ape's body. 9 silver vortexes appeared on the surface of its body, devouring the pure spiritual chi. At the same time, there seemed to be a layer of invisible force around its body, constantly squeezing its hair and muscles. It seemed to want to flatten its huge body. All the black hair clung to its skin, outlining the trembling, thick muscles. Suddenly, a red light flashed in the demon ape's eyes. It opened its mouth wide, as if it was about to roar. But strangely, there was no sound. Only an invisible wave gushed out of the demon ape's mouth and spread along its skin to all parts of its body. Wherever it passed, the rock-like muscles seemed to be greatly suppressed and suddenly shrank a lot. The appearance of this wave seemed to have caused some kind of reaction. The entire body of the demon ape began to shrink, and the black hair gradually disappeared. The rock-like muscles gradually shrank, and the 3-foot-tall, terrifying body also quickly faded. Soon, it turned into a skinny man. This man quietly floated above the devil's pool. The surrounding spiritual chi and true demon chi seemed to have found something delicious and rushed into his body like the wind. As time passed, his body gradually became full. Boom! After an unknown amount of time, an invisible force suddenly erupted from the man's body. A large amount of demonic chi blasted out. The energy in the entire cave, even the 9 pillars of spiritual chi, were reversed. The broken dragon's stone walls in all directions trembled violently, as if they had been struck by some terrifying force. Fine cracks even appeared on the walls, and the true demon water in the true demon pool below was squeezed to the bottom of the pool, almost compressing into a solid state. This force almost covered the entire devil's pool, which was hundreds of feet in size, as if it was going to tear this place apart. Fortunately, after a few breaths, this terrifying invisible force disappeared without a trace. The spiritual chi and demonic chi became extremely chaotic under the expansion and contraction. They tumbled back and forth in the cave, but when the demonic chi was 4 feet away from the middle-aged man, it suddenly stopped as if it was blocked by an invisible force field. Chapter 1068. Lu Kuan slowly opened his eyes and looked at his body. There was still a trace of fear in his eyes. He didn't expect that after the tendons condensed, the transformation of blood couldn't be stopped at all. He could only forcefully break through. When he thought about the process now, he felt that it was extremely dangerous. Lu Kuan relied on his understanding of the physical body and successfully found a way to transform blood into tendons from the connecting arms theurgy art, doubling the thickness of all the tendons in his body. Who knew that this transformation technique would open a gap? All the blood in his body would crazily rush into each tendon and spontaneously transform into muscle fibers. Lu Kuan continuously used his consciousness to forcefully stop it. It wasn't until his muscle fibers had increased by 50% and his body had transformed into a deformed ball of flesh that he was barely able to stop the remaining blood flow. let alone reverse the transformation of the transformed fibers into blood. At this time, he had no choice but to forcefully break through to compress and fuse these muscle fibers. Muscles were very tough. The more it was compressed, the greater the rebounding force between the fibers. Lu Kuan had a 9-star physique. His physical strength was at least 800,000 gene. The resistance of compressing and fusing the muscle fibers was astonishing. Even with the help of the origin energy field, it was extremely difficult. Moreover, his physical body and consciousness couldn't help much. If he relaxed even a little, more blood would pour into the blocked tendon nodes. At that time, more and more muscle fibers would appear. Sooner or later, they would explode because of the excessive energy. Although Lu Kuan had the ability to regenerate flesh, if these muscles exploded, his 100 years of cultivation would be wasted. The regenerated muscles and blood would return to the initial state of bone transformation. To resist the rebounding force of the muscle fibers, he could only rely on the reverse compression of the origin energy field. 800,000 gene of physical origin energy wasn't enough, so he had to use even more strength. Under the distortion of his muscles, he couldn't use the connecting arms theurgy art. However, Lu Kuan still had the demonic ape transformation. It was different from the connecting arms theurgy art. It used the true demon intent, demonic energy, and blood essence to stimulate the most fundamental demonic ape power in the body's cells, turning into an ancient connecting arms demonic ape. It was equivalent to using 3 types of energy to achieve the effect of a sudden increase in physical strength. A terrifying origin energy field of 1,600,000 gene compressed the muscles. Lu Kuan looked at his normal body and revealed a look of lingering fear. The devil-ape transformation is such a terrifying abhijna. My muscles have also been greatly nourished, and the rebound is even more intense. If I hadn't used the heavenly roar to injure myself, I wouldn't have been able to suppress it at all. The fluctuations of the heavenly roar divine ability caused all the muscles in my body to tremble for a short period of time, but my physical body's origin power was not affected. Taking advantage of this opportunity, I finally succeeded in compressing my muscles. Lu Kuan slowly landed on the ground. He could feel the demonic energy flowing through his muscles, his abundant strength, and his late nascent soul stage spiritual sense. He smiled. Right now, I should have entered the middle stage of bone transformation. My mana is twice as much as before, so I can fight for a longer period of time. However, my muscles are still able to store mana so easily even when I'm in a relaxed state. This seems to be very different from before. Lu Kuan did not forbid the use of his divine sense. He discovered that when the mana circulated in his muscles, a gentle force would automatically surge out from his muscle fibers. On one hand, it protected the fibers, and on the other hand, it accelerated the circulation of the mana. This gentle force should be produced after the blood transmutation. It can be said that it has greatly increased the flexibility of my muscles. That is, if my muscles contract. Thinking of this, the muscles on his arms quickly contracted. His muscles intertwined and bulged. Even so, the gentle force still existed. Moreover, after contracting, the strength of his muscles greatly increased. It was even more impossible for his mana to damage them. He didn't know if it was because of the blood fusion, but after his muscles contracted, there was a faint layer of silver light flashing above them. Every muscle on his body was like a treasure. Lu Kuan stretched out his hand and squeezed it. He could clearly feel that the hardness and strength had increased by several levels. It had completely reached the level of a mature magic treasure. Muscles were not magic treasures. There were no miniature arrays engraved on them. Their defensive power could not compare to bone treasures engraved with sturdy arrays. But even so, Lu Kuan's defensive power had reached a new height. My physical strength and origin energy field have also undergone tremendous changes. With a thought, Lu Kuan's origin energy field surged out of his body. The range of his passive energy field directly increased from 3 feet to 4 feet. He clenched his fist with one hand, and an invisible wave of air rippled out. There was even an explosive sound in the air, and an incomparably heart-palpitating wave of power spread out. He said in surprise, "My strength has soared by 50%. It's a full 1,200,000 kilograms of strength. This is equivalent to the previous full-arm state. As expected, the growth of my muscles has greatly increased my strength." The range of the passive energy field has also increased by 1 foot. It's easier to use body cultivator battle skills. If I use the severing fist battle skill, thinking of this, the origin energy field on the surface of Lu Kuan's body began to spin. It was like a silver stream of water, bringing with it a series of vortexes that curled around his body. A faint layer of halo enveloped it. Haha, it can absorb the heaven and earth origin energy. Devil origin energy and heaven and earth origin energy are. Lu Kuan's expression changed slightly. He adjusted his origin energy fluctuations according to the changes in the heaven and earth origin energy. 2 halos of light, one black and one white, flowed along the force field vortex and condensed on his 2 fists. He stared at the black halo of his left fist and felt a little excited. This was the land of the Devil's Pool. The true devil chi was rich, and naturally there was rich devil origin energy. In the past, Lu Kuan had always intercepted his opponent's heaven and earth origin energy. This time, he had taken the initiative to absorb it. He did not expect to attract the devil origin energy. Judging from the aura emitted from his fists, it seemed that the destructive power of the devil origin energy was even more astonishing. Shaking his body, he withdrew the severing fist battle skill and pondered in his heart. From the looks of it, when my strength reaches more than 1 million kilograms and the range of the passive energy field increases to 4 feet, I don't need to intercept other people's heaven and earth origin energy and can spontaneously trigger it. Can the suppressing origin palm, whirlpool finger, and origin energy vortex also absorb heaven and earth origin energy? That's right. When I just broke through, the origin energy field erupted in the form of the power of the void. It seems Lu Kuan stretched out his palm, and an invisible force surged out. The broken dragonstone gate 200 feet away was directly lifted up by this invisible force. The range of the power of the void has doubled, reaching 200 feet. In the past, the power of the void from 100 feet away was slightly insufficient. If he were to encounter a late nascent soul or a level 10 monster beast, the slightest bit of carelessness would cause the other party's nascent soul, divine soul, to escape. Now, with the distance of 200 feet and the explosive increase in his strength, if he were to meet old Devil again, he might be able to capture his nascent soul alive. Lu Kuan felt the explosive increase in his strength. The sense of crisis that had been lingering in his heart since the establishment of the sect had finally dissipated by more than half. After entering the middle bone transformation stage, he had truly entered the level of a great cultivator. He could even be considered a peak powerhouse. In his normal state, he could absorb heaven and earth origin energy to fight. If he were to cut off the enemy's origin energy, then under such circumstances, even an ordinary great cultivator would not be his opponent. My mortal body has changed a great deal from before. The supernatural power of the arms seems to be. Lu Kuan stimulated his blood essence and revolved the giant psychic arm. But soon after, he discovered that the fluctuation of blood essence had disappeared. His arm didn't move at all. He couldn't use the supernatural power of the arms. He wasn't surprised by this at all. The blood fuses with the muscles through the tendons. This itself borrows the characteristics of the supernatural power of the arms. This is equal to fusing the energy of the blood with the muscles for a long time. The supernatural power of the arms hasn't been lost, but has completely fused into the flesh and blood. If I were to transfer the blood at this time, what would happen? With a thought, the power of blood vitality in his right arm tumbled and suddenly swelled up. However, only the muscles grew thicker and the bones remained the same size. It looked as if several mountains of flesh had grown on his arm. It was even more ferocious than the giant's psychic arm. Lu Kuan muttered to himself. His consciousness probed into the depths of his flesh and blood. He discovered that the blood could be instantly strengthened because there was space in the thick tendons. In an instant, the muscle fibers increased by as much as 50%. The previous situation of losing control of the blood didn't occur. My strength didn't increase by much, only 10 to 20%. But in addition to the increase in strength, the increase in size has also increased my defensive means. With a thought, Lu Kuan's other arm's muscles also swelled up. He put his arms together in front of his body like two meat mountain shields. The 50% increase in muscle fibers is formed from blood. If it's consumed, it can be replenished almost instantly. Next, he tried other parts of his body. He discovered that every muscle could expand by 50% under the infusion of blood. It could be said that a ferocious muscle shield could appear anywhere in his body. After breaking through to a new realm, Lu Kuan felt a little itchy. He walked out, wanted to find an open space to test various body cultivation battle techniques. But just as he walked out of the Rong Yuan Devil Cave, his expression suddenly changed. A jade talisman flashing with white light appeared in his hand. It was the 1,000-mile talisman that Taoist Tao Yi gave him. Lu Kuan scanned the area with his spiritual sense and exclaimed softly, "A few sects of the Chu country have actually figured out a way to break the outer formation of the Demon Island. They want to work with me to explore the core of the island. It's been 300 years since the last opening of the Demon Island. At that time, I was still trying to break through to the blood condensation realm." With a sigh, he put away the 1,000-mile talisman and flew out. Chapter 1069. The back mountain of the body refining pavilion north of the demon abyss was a barren, lifeless rock peak. There were many ancient restrictions left here. Even though the demonic spirit Qi was quite rich, there were not many disciples stationed here. On this day, on a flat top mountain, a burly middle-aged man was wrapped in a layer of pale, silver flowing light. His arms and limbs were constantly waving, sometimes striking out with his palms, sometimes kicking sideways. Invisible waves of Qi rolled around, attracting a large amount of demonic spirit Qi. Every time a black and white halo appeared on his fists and palms, a terrifying pressure would surge in all directions. The ancient restrictions within a range of 300 meters would tremble, and the closer ones would even shatter. Layers of heart-palpitating spiritual pressure rolled over the mountains and rivers. Under the stirring of this spiritual pressure, the demonic Qi and spiritual Qi turned into numerous spiritual Qi vortexes, surging in all directions. Even from tens of miles away, one could feel the terrifying aura emitted from here. On a huge rock hundreds of feet away, 4 people and a monkey stood. Huang Xiaoyun, Fang Yuan, and the others had prepared well in this month and were preparing to lead the disciples to the Qi State's West Province. They did not expect to meet Xiao Jin, who had rushed over. Listening to his words, it seemed that the Pavilion Master's cultivation had a problem. However, when they rushed to the Demon Abyss, Lu Kuan had just finished his closed-door training. The Pavilion Master's strength has increased so much after his breakthrough. Fang Yuan and Fang Xiaobo's eyes were full of shock. Although they were only at the early nascent soul stage, they could see that the halo on Lu Kuan's fists and palms had absorbed the world's origin Qi. Obviously, his physical attacks had reached the level of a great cultivator. More than 100 years ago, they had witnessed the battle between Lu Kuan and Taoist Tao Yi and the Kuei Ox King. They knew that the Pavilion Master's defensive power was amazing, but his offensive power was slightly lacking. Now, it seemed that after entering the middle stage of bone transformation, his offensive power had greatly increased. Apart from Fang Yuan and her brother, the other 2 people and the monkey were all carefully observing Lu Kuan's combat skills. Although the range of the passive origin energy field was different, the technique of circulating origin energy could still give them a lot of inspiration. Xiao Jin's ears perked up. He could sense the situation in Lu Kuan's body more clearly than the other 2. His divine power was a little special, and he had some kind of connection with Lu Kuan. The surge of mana in his body and the contraction of his muscle fibers formed a unique image in his mind. Although he did not observe how Lu Kuan had broken through at close range, Xiao Jin suddenly understood based on the subtle changes in his body and the changes in his bloodline. Lu Kuan had truly integrated the bloodline of the giant long-armed ape into his body, forming a new bloodline. His flesh and blood had been stimulated to their greatest potential. It could be said that the bloodline of the giant long-armed ape had disappeared from Lu Kuan's body. Although he had lost the bloodline connection of the giant long-armed ape, Xiao Jin did not know why, but he felt that the devil ape's aura in his body had become stronger. After a full day, Lu Kuan finally stopped experimenting with various combat skills and revealed a satisfied smile. He found that as long as he added the Severing Fist's Whirlpool Force Field to other combat skills, he could absorb the origin energy of heaven and earth. The reason why the 4-foot origin energy field could absorb the origin energy of heaven and earth was because its absorption range was far greater than the 3-foot origin energy field. The range was large enough, and with the addition of more than 1,000,000 pounds of strength, it attracted the energy in the depths of the demonic spirit chi. Moreover, the strength of the muscles at the middle stage of bone transformation had greatly increased. Besides the fists, which had the most bone treasures, the palms and fingers could also withstand the pressure of the origin energy of heaven and earth. Although Lu Kuan had not tried the devil ape transformation, he had a feeling in his heart that this supernatural power that used the true demonic intent could still be used. However, the increase in strength was not as great. After all, his body had already digested the bloodline of the giant long-armed ape. Even if his strength did not increase by much, with his 3-foot-tall body, the amount of origin energy field that he could absorb would be incomparably shocking. The devil ape transformation consumed a great deal of energy. Lu Kuan was reluctant to use so much water of the true demonic to experiment with this supernatural power. He shook his head. His figure flashed, and he flew away. When he arrived in front of the others, there were 4 small gray balls in his hands that emitted a strange aura. Lu Kuan threw them to Huang Xiaoyun and Pan Yin and said, "These destruction balls are no longer of much use to master. You only need to use your blood essence to refine them again, and you'll be able to use them freely." Huang Xiaoyun and Pan Yinchi happily accepted the gifts, including the ones given to them in the past. Each of them had 3 beads each. This kind of treasure could instantly erupt the destructive power of an early nascent soul cultivator. In some critical moments, it could play an unimaginable role. Lu Kuan looked at Fairy Fong Yuan again and sighed. I didn't expect that after so many years, Fairy Fong Yuan's body had entered the bone treasure stage. Fairy Fong Yuan said, "If it wasn't for the 6-star physique, even if I had a nascent soul, I'm afraid it would be difficult to condense my core and dissolve my bones. I only intend to cultivate my body to this realm. After all, the blood demon force will conflict with the water attribute nascent soul." Lu Kuan nodded and said, "It should be so. With this early bone treasure stage body, Fairy's defense and speed have increased by a large margin. It should be enough to deal with a nascent soul stage battle. The rest of the time should be focused on cultivating the spirit transformation art." He paused and then asked, "That's right, that little guy Xiong, how's his cultivation progress now?" Fong Yuan replied, "He entered the 3rd level of the demon spirit cultivation art more than 30 years ago. There's still some distance to the 4th level of the blood condensation stage. But from what I see, this little guy deliberately lowered his cultivation speed." "Deliberately?" Lu Kuan asked curiously. Fong Yuan smiled and said, "Xiong and the giant spirit bear have a very good relationship. He didn't think of changing spirit beasts. After entering the bone tempering stage, this little guy probably secretly used his body's mana to help the giant spirit bear cultivate. Otherwise, this bear demon wouldn't have entered the ranks of rank 2 demonic beasts so quickly. If this little guy concentrates on cultivating, he'll probably enter the peak of the bone tempering stage within 10 years. At that time, He can try to transform into a half-demon by exchanging bones. Lu Kuan nodded lightly. At this moment, Huang Xiaoyan suddenly said, "That's right, Master. Not long ago, the treasure pavilion sent a message. Elder Xiao seems to have disappeared." Disappeared? Huang Xiaoyan said. According to Elder Qin, Elder Xiao left Yang City a month ago to return to the Yang mountain range for seclusion. But later, Elder Qin found out that Elder Xiao didn't return to the Yang mountain range through the disciples of the treasure pavilion. Elder Xiao wants to break through to the nascent soul stage. It's impossible for him to go anywhere else. We can't contact him either. It's as if he disappeared. After Lu Kuan heard this, he frowned. A bracelet suddenly appeared in his hand. Inside it was a report from Serene. A month ago, a mid-nascent soul stage cultivator who was proficient in ghost cultivation arts tried to break through the border of the land of death, but was repelled by her. Isn't this the time when Xiao Hongfei left Yang City? Then, a black mountain-like stone appeared in his hand. It exuded a layer of frantic thoughts. It was a fragment of the Mountain of Vows. After sensing it, he found that Xiao Hongfei's soul imprint was still there. His life was not in danger. Could it be that the mid-nascent soul stage cultivator led Serene away in order to kidnap Xiao Hongfei? If he wanted to find out the secrets of body cultivators, shouldn't he capture a body cultivator? Besides, with the restrictions of the Mountain of Vows, even in early deity transformation stage, cultivator wouldn't be able to find any information. Cultivating ghost cultivation arts. Could it be someone from the ghost spirit sect? Chu states immortal cultivation world. Taoist Dao, he asked me to go to the demon island to help. Is there any connection with this? Lu Kuan thought about it again, but it seemed that he couldn't connect the dots. He definitely had to go to the demon island. According to the Black Fiend Demon King, Lu Kuan knew that the center of the island was the place where the Yuan school suppressed the high-level devil race. There were many devil race skeletons left behind. For the body refining pavilion, these skeletons were indispensable. The battle treasures and the great 5 elements force field restrictions all needed the devil bones. There might be a devil pool there. He had to find a way to get the water of the true devil. Just in case, before going to the demon island, I'd better make more preparations. With a plan in mind, Lu Kuan said, "I will inquire about Xiao Hongfei. Xiao Yun and Xiao Yin. You take the body cultivator disciples to the poison refining pavilion through the teleportation formation. By the way, Xiao Jin you go too." "Yes, master." Squeak. Lu Kuan then looked at Feng Yuan and Feng Xiaobo and said slowly, "You two go later. In the next 2 days, help me control the power of strange fire and refine a special treasure." "Yes, Pavilion Master." The Feng siblings were curious. They didn't know what kind of treasure the Pavilion Master wanted to refine. Chapter 1070. Body Refining Pavilion, outside of the lava cave. Yanfei stood at the entrance of the cave, looking in from time to time. His expression was filled with excitement. 20 years ago, he successfully broke through to the bone tempering stage. In the last intersect competition, he defeated the previous generation of disciples and barely squeezed into the ranks of the 3rd generation disciples. The 3rd generation disciples have a lot of resources and benefits. The job of guarding the lava cave is one of them. Ordinary disciples need to spend contribution points to be able to refine artifacts. Not only can he refine artifacts at any time, he can also cultivate in the lava cave. With the Yuan flame body refining art, even without the help of poison, his cultivation speed is very shocking. It probably won't be long before he enters the peak of the bone tempering stage. I never thought that I would be able to see the Pavilion Master twice in a month. I wonder what realm the Pavilion Master's body has reached. Just by standing there, he makes my body tremble. Yanfei looked at the entrance of the cave while cultivating the Yuan flame body refining art. However, the efficiency of his cultivation was not high. His mind was filled with the excitement of seeing the Pavilion Master. For a disciple like him who cultivated from a mortal martial artist, the Pavilion Master is a godlike existence. If the Pavilion Master didn't create the artifact spiritual root method, he would have already turned into a cup of dust. How could he still have 100 years of lifespan like now? With his cultivation nearing the peak of the bone-tempering stage, he definitely has the chance to enter the treasure bone stage in the future. Why is the lava cave so quiet today? What happened? Suddenly, an ordinary-looking tall man flew over from the distance. With a few flashes, he landed beside the entrance of the lava cave. Yin Fei looked over and couldn't help revealing a respectful expression as he said, "So, it's Martial Uncle Gao. The Pavilion Master and 2 elders of the Demon Spirit Pavilion are currently refining treasures at the bottom of the lava cave. They said that they need all of the mysterious flame essence, so this place is temporarily closed." The Pavilion Master is here? The tall man also showed an excited expression. He was one of the disciples who joined the body refining pavilion during the sect opening ceremony, Gao Yong. Gao Yong's respect for the Pavilion Master is also indescribable. Back then, he was extremely lucky and entered the Foundation establishment stage with a 5 attribute spiritual root. However, he didn't have any confidence in his cultivation after that. After all, his cultivation speed was too slow with a low-quality spiritual root. If not for the body refining art created by Lu Kuan, he would probably still be in the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm. Gao Yong excitedly took 2 steps forward and felt a surge of flame energy. He suddenly understood and said, "No wonder the lava cave was sealed. Even a body-tempering, great perfection stage cultivator would not be able to withstand the flame energy released by the mysterious fire for long." Hearing his words, Yin Fei could not help but ask, "Martial Uncle Gao, you've reached the peak stage of the body-tempering realm?" Gao Yong sighed with emotion. He nodded and said, "The viscera forging stage is truly a time-consuming realm. Even with enough poison, it still took nearly 50 years. Yin Fei's eyes lit up as he said, "Martial Uncle Gao, could it be that you came to this lava cave to condense your core and melt your bones and break through the bone treasure stage?" Gao Yong smiled bitterly and said, "How can it be so easy to break through the bone treasure stage? I came here this time to refine a pseudo-magic weapon to participate in the War of the Western region. When Masters Junior Huang informed me, I was still in seclusion and didn't make it to the main group. But it just so happens that there's a group of disciples from the Warrior Holy City who are also going to the West State. We can use the teleportation portal together." Yin Fei was stunned. The disciples of the Warrior Holy City? Those little guys at the peak of the Martial Saint realm are also going to participate in the War of the Western region? They haven't refined their weapon's spiritual roots yet. At most, they can deal with some Qi refining stage demonic cultivators. Gao Yong sighed and said, "You might not know, but the Pavilion Master has already increased the number of weapon spiritual roots by 10. That is to say, every 20 years, there will be 40 martial artists who fuse with weapon spiritual roots. And the number of martial artist disciples has also increased by 50%. This way, the competition will be even more brutal. Masters Junior Huang's intention is to give the weaker disciples chance. If they can kill enough demonic cultivators in this war, they will also have a chance to fuse with a weapon spiritual root." Yin Fei's expression turned serious. After fusing with a weapon spiritual root, he had also gone to the western region of the Qi Kingdom to train. That place was filled with all kinds of demonic cultivators and was extremely dangerous. These martial artist disciples did not have a spiritual root and were participating in the war between immortal cultivation sects. The death rate would be extremely high. However, this was the only way they could have a chance to fuse with a weapon spiritual root and become an official immortal cultivator. Yin Fei had also fought his way out of the encirclement of the martial artists of the Jin Kingdom. After cultivating to the peak of the Martial Saint realm, he had competed with a group of powerhouses for the 30 spots. In the end, he had gone through a lot of training and finally reached the bone-tempering stage. For mortal martial artists, as long as there was a chance to enter a higher realm and increase their lifespan, these risks were nothing. As long as it was not a dead end, these top martial artists of the mortal world would definitely fight for that slim chance. Moreover, After entering the bone-tempering stage, he knew that the weapon's spiritual root was not easy to obtain. The basic materials for it were the golden core of an immortal cultivator or the monster core of a level 5 demonic beast. This was an existence that was on the same level as the bone treasure stage body cultivators. The body refining pavilion was willing to use such a precious item on their mortal martial artists. The mortal disciples who knew this had an unimaginable reverence for the pavilion master. Rumble. Just as the two of them were talking, the ground suddenly shook violently. The lava cave below seemed to be about to collapse. At the same time, a scorching heat wave rushed out from the side of the cave. Gao Yong reacted quickly and directly blocked in front of Yin Fei. A round shield was hanging on his arm at some point. Bang! There was a loud sound. Gao Yong felt an unparalleled wave of air coming at him. His strength of more than 50,000 Jin was like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. It was completely useless. His entire body was sent flying. Yin Fei, who was behind him, also took out a shield. Although Gao Yong was blocking, the remaining chi wave was still difficult to resist, and he was immediately repelled. Fortunately, the entrance of the lava cave was facing the sky. The heat wave was not directly aimed at the two of them. Just the remaining chi wave alone was enough to slightly injure them. If they had stayed at the entrance of the cave, they would have been seriously injured. The heat wave came and went quickly. After it was released, the two of them felt an unfathomable power of divine sense enter their arms. The blood in their body flowed rapidly, and their arms gradually regained feeling. In the passage of the cave, a burly man slowly walked out. It was Lu Kuan. Fang Yuan and her brother followed behind him. Their eyes were still filled with shock, as if they had seen something unbelievable. Lu Kuan looked at the two disciples who had fallen not far away. His face darkened. Yin Fei, didn't I tell you to stay away from the entrance of the cave? Why are you still so close? Yin Fei looked a little embarrassed. Pavilion Master, Lu Kuan waved his hand. The impact just now was your punishment. Then he looked at Gao Yong and said with some surprise, You're Gao Yong, the disciple with 5 spiritual roots? Gao Yong saw the Pavilion Master looking at him and quickly got up. He said respectfully, Yes, I am. You're cultivating the essence water body tempering technique? Gao Yong was stunned. He nodded and said, I entered the foundation establishment stage with a water attribute basic cultivation method. In order to increase my cultivation speed, I'm cultivating the essence water body tempering technique. Lu Kuan pondered for a moment. His powerful divine sense came out of his body and entered Gao Yong's body. After a while, he said, Fairy Fang Yuan, Xiaobo, go to the west region. Yes, Pavilion Master. Then Lu Kuan and the other two turned into 3 streaks of light and shot into the distance. Yin Fei breathed a sigh of relief. It was good that the Pavilion Master did not blame him. Masters Junior Gao, the Pavilion Master has left. What kind of mystical fire do you need? I'll give you the restriction token. Masters Junior Gao. Gao Yong did not seem to hear Yin Fei's words. He stood there in a daze. Just now, the Pavilion Master used his divine sense to leave a cultivation method and a secret technique in his mind. 5 elements body tempering technique. Major 5 elements art. Chapter 1071. Lu Kuan was flying high in the sky. He did not impart his skills to Gao Yong on the spur of the moment. One of the reasons why a few of his disciples failed to break through was because the level of magical power in their bodies was lower than the demonic power in their blood and chi. They could not maintain the balance, causing their bone treasures to be devoured by the evil energy. When Lu Kuan broke through, the chaotic magical power in his body was not suppressed at all. In order to prevent the demonic power in his blood and chi from fusing with his magical power, he even took the initiative to strengthen the demonic power in his blood and chi by adding the dark attribute. If a disciple who cultivated his bone treasures had the chaotic magical power of the 5 elements in his body, would he be able to resist the demonic power in his blood and chi? The 5 elements body refinement formula was derived by Lu Kuan while he was cultivating. After his bone treasures turned into the 5 elements chaotic demon bone, he cultivated the chaotic magical power through the power of the 5 elements spiritual roots. It would not be so easy for other disciples to cultivate it. The most basic requirement was to have the 5 elements spiritual roots. Although these spiritual roots were the worst in the eyes of traditional cultivators, they were actually very rare. The most common ones were 3 or 4 spiritual roots. With the power of the 5 elements spiritual roots, the next step would be to condense the 5 elements mark of the physical body at the great completion stage of body tempering. Lu Kuan only had the lightning attribute in his body. The difficulty of cultivating the 5 elements body refinement formula was obviously higher than other cultivation techniques. Lu Kuan had a deep impression of Gao Yang's disciple. This person had such a poor spiritual root, but he had successfully built his foundation in his 30s. After 120 years, his physical body had even reached the great completion stage of body tempering. This cultivation speed was not slow at all. It meant that this person either had a hidden constitution or was extremely lucky. Among the 2nd and 3rd generation disciples, only Gao Yang was suitable to cultivate the 5 elements body refinement formula. If the chaotic magical power of the 5 elements can really resist the demonic power in blood and qi, then the weapon spiritual root secret technique would be even more useful, Lu Kuan thought in his mind. Unknowingly, he was above the Yiyang mountain range. He flew towards the treasure pavilion. Qin Yushu had already returned to the sect. He wanted to find out more about Xiao Hongfei's situation. The person who could kidnap Xiao Hongfei silently must be a nascent soul stage cultivator. Together with the one who led Serene away, there were 2 nascent soul stage cultivators. Although he did not know the reason, he was not worth the risk of 2 nascent soul stage cultivators. Xiao Hongfei was only a core, after all, of... A few hours later, Lu Kuan turned into a streak of light and flew out of the mountain range, heading in the direction of the land of death. The other party took action in the land of death. Qin Yushu and Xiao Hongfei have not come into contact with other nascent soul stage cultivators in recent years. It seems that I can only find clues from Serene. Then Lu Kuan lowered his head to look at his body. Although his clothes were still the same, the color had turned gray. There was a faint spirit light surging on it. It clung to Lu Kuan's body, outlining his strong muscles. Qin Yushu and Elder Zhu are really thoughtful. They actually used the hard-to-obtain Jia Ling nephrite to specially refine this spiritual armor. This kind of top-notch material is not only incomparably soft and can shrink at will, but also has the ability to absorb the energy of spells. Its only weakness is that it is vulnerable to physical attacks. But this is nothing to me. If I encounter a physical attack, I just have to take the initiative to shrink the Jia Ling soft armor and resist it with my body. The Jia Ling soft armor will not be damaged. He touched his waist. There was a groove made of spirit extinction Oregon. There was a high-grade spirit stone in it. To refine it using the method of a spirit-controlling immortal artifact, they are lucky that they dared to refine it. I can control it freely with my spiritual sense. Lu Kuan sighed and accelerated again. With a speed faster than ordinary nascent soul stage cultivators, he arrived at the land of death's one-line sky in just half a day. Serene sensed it and waited outside the cave. When she saw Lu Kuan's figure, her beautiful face showed respect. Greets the pavilion master. Lu Kuan landed lightly on the side. His eyes flashed with golden light, and he said in surprise, "You've reached the peak of the 8th level? No wonder you can beat back a nascent soul stage cultivator." He had thought it was strange before. With Serene strength, although she had a big advantage against an early nascent soul stage cultivator, it would be difficult for her to defeat a mid-nascent soul stage cultivator. Serene, the silver-armored corpse, looked no different from a human woman. There was even a modest expression on her face. Has been absorbing and refining the pavilion master's essence blood all year round. My body is constantly changing. Now my dantian and meridians are almost the same as an immortal cultivator's. Coupled with the effect of the extreme Yin body, I can smoothly absorb the cold energy. When Lu Kuan heard this, he couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. When he fed serene essence blood, he studied the process of the silver-armored corpse devouring essence blood and found that the key was in the corpse core. When the essence blood was filtered through the corpse core, it would produce something similar to the blood energy of a demon cultivator and nourish the body. Those powerful high-level silver-armored corpses basically killed a large number of immortal cultivators and absorbed enough essence blood to break through to a high realm. Unfortunately, the corpse core was unique to zombies. Moreover, the body tempering energy was not of much use to Lu Kuan, and he couldn't learn anything from it. These thoughts flashed through Lu Kuan's mind, and he slowly said, "First, describe the matter from a month ago in detail. Also, describe the appearance of that immortal cultivator." Serene nodded and connected her spiritual sense to Lu Kuan, sharing the memories of the battle. The image of a middle-aged man with a gloomy aura quickly appeared in Lu Kuan's mind. During the battle, this person not only used various ghost Dao spells, but also used a magic treasure that looked like a ghost claw. It was quite powerful. Unfortunately, this kind of ghost Dao cultivation method that used cold Yin energy to cultivate had no effect on Serene. She took a few hits head-on and closed the distance. After the silver-armored corpse closed in, the immortal cultivator was beaten back repeatedly. In the end, he used a secret technique to escape. Lu Kuan coldly snorted, and his gaze was incomparably cold. Yin-Chi cultivation techniques are definitely related to the ghost spirit sect. I didn't think that after 100 years, the state of Chu's nascent soul cultivators would have already forgotten about my existence. Lu Kuan. I will be making a trip to the inner seas. During this time, you will be overseeing the body refining pavilion's headquarters. In the back mountains of the Cloud Ridge Mountains, I used the corpses of some nether insect called spirit-devouring insects to create a place for disciples to temper their bodies. It is a pity that I can't learn from the nether insect race's method of tempering the body. Go cultivate there and see if these insects are of any help. Yes, Pavilion Lord. Lu Kuan looked at Serene and frowned. That's right. 50 years have passed, but I don't seem to feel any bloodthirsty intent. Serene curiously said, "In the past few years, Ein's mind has become clearer. Could it be that the Pavilion Lord's blood essence has eliminated my hidden dangers?" Lu Kuan pondered for a moment and said, "Just in case, I'll leave you a portion of my blood essence. If bloodthirsty intent appears in battle, it will be troublesome." Soon after, his blood roiled, and he opened his mouth. Drops of sparkling silver blood floated out, releasing powerful blood essence. They gradually condensed into a fist-sized ball of blood essence and floated forward. Serene didn't know why, but when the ball of blood essence appeared, she felt a sense of desire and immediately swallowed it. "I'm leaving." Lu Kuan then turned into a streak of light and soared into the sky. In just a few breaths of time, he disappeared from Serene's sight. Chapter 1072. The two chapters of The Ancestor of Body Cultivators will be published together tomorrow. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1073. The Eastern Chu province was located to the north of the Eastern Pon province. The climate was dry and the winds wreaked havoc. Although most of the land was a desert with few mortals, the spiritual Qi there was abundant. 3 sects of the state of Chu were stationed here. At the border between the Eastern Chu province and the Northern Desolate province was a rocky mountain range filled with dense Yin Qi. Due to the 9 steep peaks at the center of the mountain range, it was known as the 9 Yin Mountain Range. The spiritual Qi there wasn't dense and was sandwiched between the Northern Desolate province and the Land of Death. It was mixed with cold Yin Qi and devilish Qi, making it completely unsuitable for cultivation. However, this kind of environment was the best place for a ghost Dao sect like the Ghost Spirit sect that relied on cold yin qi to cultivate. Under the effects of the Ghost Spirit sect's various spirit gathering formations, the cold yin qi, spiritual qi, and devilish qi of the 9E mountain range were all gathered together to facilitate the cultivation of the sect's disciples. The highest peak of the 9E mountain range was the cave residence of the Ghost Spirit sect's Grand Elder Chi Ruyan. Not only did this female cultivator possess mid-nascent soul cultivation, she was also proficient in the sect's operations. In the several hundred years since she became the Grand Elder, the Ghost Spirit sect's strength had steadily increased. It had already surpassed the Golden Spear sect and the Sky Sand sect. If it weren't for the fact that their battle prowess was inferior to the Blazing Sun sect that cultivated spirit flames, they would have been ranked third in the state of Chu. On this day, a middle-aged man appeared in Chi Ruyan's cave residence. His aura was slightly unstable, and the spiritual pressure he emitted was extremely powerful. He was at mid-nascent soul stage. Chi Ruyan was a beautiful woman. She was currently looking at the middle-aged man with a frosty expression. Song Yuan, you are far too daring. I had you oversee the Western Province's sifting sect. Why did you leave without permission and provoke the body refining pavilion? Do you know that this action could bring disaster to our sect? The middle-aged man's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he said, Senior Marshal sister, Junior Marshal brother only pretended to accidentally trigger the body refining pavilion's restrictions. He didn't do anything rash and was even injured. Junior Marshal brother clearly suffered a loss. The body refining pavilion shouldn't investigate. Chi Ruyan revealed a look of disappointment. You idiot. If things were so simple, why would the Seven Fiends sect exchange a nascent soul? Their goal is for you to lure that female cultivator away, making it easier for the Seven Evils sect to do other things in secret. For a nascent soul to allow you to block a tribulation for them, it's such a good deal. The man called Song Yuan's face was a bit pale. Senior sister, you can't say that. If I didn't have the soul of a nascent soul, I wouldn't have been able to enter the middle stage of nascent soul. It's not a loss. Senior sister has also checked Junior brother's body. There's no tracking mark on him. The body refining pavilion can't track him either. Chi Ruyan was so angry that she laughed. I really don't know how you managed to survive in the West Prefecture all these years. Don't you know that cultivation methods and magic weapons are the most obvious signs? If the body refining pavilion wants to investigate, they will naturally come to our Ghost Spirit sect. From the fact that they sealed off the land of death, it can be seen that they are an extremely tyrannical sect. If a conflict were to occur, our sect's many years of development would be destroyed in a single day. When Song Yuan heard this, he was a little flustered. He was willing to agree to that person's request because he felt that the strength of the body refining pavilion was not necessarily that strong. He had also heard of Pavilion Master Lu's heaven defying supernatural power and thought that it was exaggerated. But ever since he fought with that female cultivator a month ago, he felt a deep sense of fear towards this sect. Although her aura was at the peak of early nascent soul stage, her physical body was far too fearsome. No matter what abilities or magic techniques he used, she was able to resist them with her physical body. As for that person's attacks, apart from pure yin energy, they also contained immense power. Even with his newly ascended mid-nascent soul stage cultivation, his physical body was nearly destroyed. If the female cultivator guarding the body refining pavilion's border was so powerful, then what about the other nascent soul stage body cultivators? What about the master of the body refining pavilion? When Chi Ruyan saw Song Yuan's expression, her expression softened and she said, Fortunately, after a month, the body refining pavilion hasn't made any moves. Your injuries have also recovered. Quickly return to the Western Province. If you hadn't broken through to mid-nascent soul stage, I wouldn't have helped you recover. Don't participate in the battle for the Devil Dragon Mountain. Next. With that said, Chi Ruyan suddenly stopped and raised her head to look at the sky above her cave residence. A series of faint rumbling sounds could be heard from the distant horizon. These sounds were extremely deep and resounding, like continuous muffled thunder. Song Yuan also heard these strange rumbling sounds and extended his spiritual sense into the distance. He couldn't help but open his eyes wide. Dozens of kilometers to the south of the mountain range, a silver object wrapped in flames was tearing through the air and clouds. It was descending at an extremely terrifying speed. That layer of flame was a result of friction with the air due to the extreme speed. It was not some kind of immortal cultivator's spell. The silver object under the flame seemed to be spinning at a high speed, and its surface was surging with a silver-white halo. When he probed it with his spiritual sense, he felt a terrifying and formless suction force. In a moment of carelessness, a trace of his spiritual sense was sucked into it and was shredded by an invisible force. Song Yuan's face paled. What kind of meteor is this? Its aura is so strange. With a grave expression, Qi Rian said, "This isn't a meteor. That silver light seems to be the manifestation of worldly origin Qi. It might be a fearsome magic treasure." With that thought, her expression wildly changed. Not good. This meteor is falling in the direction of our ghost spirit sect. With that said, light flashed from her hand and a restriction spell plate appeared. The patterns on its surface were complex. She formed a series of incantation seals with her slender hand, and 9 spots of light quickly lit up on the plate. 9 thick pillars of spirit energy shot out from the 9 mountain peaks. Large amounts of spiritual qi, yin qi, and even devilish qi converged from all directions. A thick layer of dark gray light appeared out of nowhere and enveloped the ghost spirit sect. The Grand Restriction Formation has been activated. Could it be someone is attacking the ghost spirit sect? Look, what is that? No way. It's a meteor from outer space. I was wondering why there was thunder. It seems to be smashing towards our mountain range. What are you afraid of? The sect elders have long since discovered it. Otherwise, why would they activate the Grand Restriction Formation? Not to mention the disciples outside. Even a few cultivators in seclusion were awakened by the huge commotion. They flew out of their cave residences and looked at the rapidly approaching meteor. From their point of view, although the meteor from outer space carried an unparalleled force, it didn't contain any magical techniques or abilities. The Ghost Spirit Sect's Grand Restriction Formation could even withstand the attacks of great cultivators. So what if it was a meteor from outer space? Many people even revealed expressions of excitement. Meteors from outer space often contained incomparably precious materials. Wasn't this a windfall from the heavens? Rumble. The deafening rumbling became increasingly clear. Streaks of spiritual light gradually surged from the dark gray Grand Restriction Formation. It was as if the meteor carried an intense wind pressure, bringing a considerable amount of pressure to the Grand Restriction Formation. Bang! Accompanied by a huge explosion, a thick silver halo of light intertwined with the Grand Restriction Formation's gray spiritual light. A terrifying spiritual pressure rose and surged in all directions. A hole was directly blasted into the incomparably sturdy light barrier. The silver meteor broke through the Grand Formation, but its speed didn't decrease in the slightest. It ruthlessly smashed towards the highest peak of the 9 Yin mountain range. Boom! Everyone felt as if the heavens and earth were falling apart. The mountain range beneath their feet trembled incessantly. Scorching waves of qi mixed with large amounts of sand and stone spread out in all directions with the central peak as the center. The Ghost Spirit Sect disciples who were originally watching the show all became alarmed. Without the obstruction of the Grand Restriction Formation, the terrifying spiritual pressure produced by the silver halo of light spread towards them. The disciples flying the air suddenly felt the magic power in their bodies desperately withdraw into their dantian. Without the support of magic power, the magic tools beneath their feet all fell down dizzily, as if they were drunk. Soon after, they were sent flying by the surging waves of scorching qi. For a moment, The entire ghost spirit sect was covered in sand and stones, and the sky darkened. This frightening scene lasted for several tens of breaths before gradually calming down. A few daring disciples cautiously spread out their spiritual sense. They were alarmed to discover that a third of the highest peak where the Grand Elder's cave resided had disappeared. The several hundred-meter-tall mountain had turned into mountain fragments and scattered at the foot of the mountain. It was as if it had been forcibly broken by a towering giant. Chapter 1074. The mountain range gradually stopped shaking, and the spirit chi also calmed down. However, the area around the broken mountain peak was still filled with rocks and dust. The rocks at the top had already turned into a valley with a diameter of several hundred meters. The surface of the rocks above still had traces of ripples from the impact. The deeper one went, the deeper one went. And in the depths of this small valley, a humanoid monster covered in lumps of flesh stood on the ground. The rings of deformed muscles contracted inwards, gradually turning into a tall and sturdy middle-aged man. Lu Kuan looked around and saw the terrifying scene he had created. His expression was somewhat excited. This move that fell from the sky, using the body as a meteorite. It was a battle skill he had concluded not long ago, Falling Star. Lu Kuan used Pan Yan's posture to resist the heavenly tribulation as a reference. He curled his body into a ball of flesh. At the same time, through the support of his blood, his muscles expanded to the limit. This state caused his bone treasures to be tightly connected. After his muscles expanded, they filled up the gaps and turned into a tight ball of flesh. Mature muscles and bone treasures intertwined with each other, incomparably sturdy. Then, he activated the profound meaning of the Severing Fist battle skill and operated the origin force field on the surface of the ball of flesh, attracting the world's origin chi to adhere to it. However, this meteorite-like ball of flesh did not use gravity. To the current Lu Kuan, the acceleration of the origin force field and bone treasures was countless times stronger than gravity. As early as 50 kilometers away, he began to accelerate. In order to increase the impact, he also made the ball of flesh rotate at an astonishing speed. In addition, in the process of activating the Falling Star battle skill, Lu Kuan made a new discovery. The speed of other battle skills was extremely fast, and the amount of world's origin chi was maintained at a constant amount. However, this battle skill took a long time. As he accelerated, the amount of world's origin chi he absorbed gradually increased. It only began to reach saturation after flying 60 kilometers. In other words, the world's origin chi absorbed by the battle skill could be stored up until Lu Kuan's limit. The impact of the 50-kilometer acceleration, the might of the world's origin chi, and the terrifying meatball formed from the combination of mature stage magic treasures easily destroyed the ghost spirit sect's spell formation. Even the mountain peak where the nascent soul cultivators resided was nearly destroyed. The resulting destruction was simply earth-shattering. However, such a terrifying battle skill had many shortcomings. First of all, it required a sufficient distance and time to execute. Moreover, due to the constant acceleration of the attack, it was difficult to change direction. For a nascent soul stage cultivator, it was still very easy to dodge. Lu Kuan shook his body, and with a slight movement of his psyche, the Xiaoling's soft armor changed from a pair of shorts to a gray suit, covering his naked body. With a trace of golden light in his eyes, he looked 300 meters away and indifferently said, "Fellow Taoists of the Ghost Spirit sect, since you don't plan on running away, then show yourselves. You won't be able to hide from Lu with such meager concealment techniques." As he spoke, 6 figures gradually appeared 1,000 feet away. The 2 at the front were the Ghost Spirit sect's Grand Elder Qi Ruyan and the recently ascended mid-nascent soul stage Song Yuan. Behind them were the other 4 early nascent soul stage elders. They looked at Lu Kuan with eyes filled with fear. Logically speaking, 6 nascent soul cultivators should have some confidence even if they were to encounter a grand cultivator. However, When they saw Lu Kuan standing in the distance, they were all drenched in cold sweat and their eyes were filled with fear. Apart from Qi Ruyan and Song Yuan, the other nascent soul cultivators' cave residences were also on this mountain peak. Only at such a close distance did they realize just how frightening the impact of the meteor was. If they were to be brushed by it, they would have died without a burial. Furthermore, what caused them to feel even more fear was that the meteor wasn't a meteor from the heavens. It was the physical body of the man standing before them. A person's physical body had been cultivated to such a degree that not only could he unleash such a fearsome attack, but his body was also at the center of the attack, and yet he was completely unharmed. From this point alone, the nascent soul cultivators of the Ghost Spirit sect understood that they wouldn't be able to break through his defenses with their current strength. Only the master of the body refining pavilion could possess such a fearsome body and strength. Qi Ruyan was the first to calm down. She took 2 steps forward and bowed. This concubine is Qi Ruyan. Greetings to Master Lu. Has Master Lu come to visit our sect because of the matter from a month ago? Lu Kuan looked at Qi Ruyan with some surprise and nodded. That's right. I originally planned to ask about it, but I didn't expect to see the main culprit. A while ago, this person beside you lured away, causing one of our sect disciples to be kidnapped. Lu happened to be passing by the Ghost Spirit sect and came to investigate. The nascent soul cultivators inwardly cursed. What did he mean by happened to be passing by? He clearly came for the Ghost Spirit sect. Qi Ruyan revealed a sincere expression and said, if Junior Martial Brother were to tell Master Lu everything, would Pavilion Master spare his life? Lu Kuan coldly snorted and an invisible force field curled around his body, causing the air around him to slightly distort. The unique aura of his physical body's origin power began to fill the air around him. The nascent soul cultivators felt as if their bodies had met their natural enemy. Their hair stood on end as they trembled with fear. If this person doesn't speak, Lu will search his soul. If you think your escape techniques are decent, you can escape. Qi Ruyan's expression stiffened, and she took a deep breath before slowly saying, we were in the wrong first. Junior Martial Brother, tell Master Lu the whole story. Song Yuan bitterly took 2 steps forward and forcefully suppressed the fear in his heart. Master Lu, I coveted the soul of the 7 Fiends sect's nascent soul. It has nothing to do with the Ghost Spirit sect. Lu Kuan frowned and said, the 7 Fiends sect? Tell me the details. Song Yuan said, half a year ago, fellow Taoist Ma of the 7 Fiends sect came to me and wanted to make a deal. He only needed to pretend to probe the borders of the body, refining pavilion, and lure out the nascent soul female cultivator guarding it for an hour. He would be able to understand the characteristics of her abilities in exchange for the nascent soul. At the time, I was at a bottleneck in my cultivation and greatly desired such a wondrous item. Since there wasn't much risk involved, I agreed and signed a contract. Fellow Taoist Ma was very straightforward and gave me the nascent soul. Master Lu should know what happened next. After I probed, I was wounded by that fellow Taoist and had to flee. As for what other schemes that fellow Taoist Ma had, I don't know. Lu Kuan's eyes flickered with a trace of doubt. Surnamed Ma? He seems to be an unknown, early nascent soul elder of the 7 Fiends sect. Song Yuan said, that person keeps a low profile and has always been in the depths of the 7 Fiends sect. I don't know why, but he has been frequently appearing recently. Lu Kuan pondered for a moment and coldly said, this is only your side of the story. Release your spiritual sense and let Lu personally investigate. Song Yuan's face paled, but before he could say anything, Qi Ruyan's expression sank. Master Lu, the soul is extremely important. Aren't you going too far by doing this? When Lu Kuan heard this, he coldly chuckled and disappeared in a blur. The Ghost Spirit sect cultivators' expressions greatly changed. However, they were still on guard against Song Yuan's attack and placed defensive magic treasures in front of them. At this moment, a pair of palms with a faint halo formed a blade and passed through the gaps between the magic treasures. Then, it pressed down on the shield outside Song Yuan's body. The latter felt his mana and meridians tremble. Not only was he unable to muster any mana, his body even felt a little weak. The magic power barrier was directly pierced through as if it were paper, and a thick hand grabbed his neck. Boom! A stifling force field spread out and not only enveloped Song Yuan, but the other cultivator's defensive magic treasures were also sent flying. Lu Kuan ignored the others and coldly stared at Song Yuan. Lu, today you will be facing the weak. Either you release your spiritual sense, or I will forcibly search your soul. Choose. When the other nascent soul cultivators saw that Lu Kuan had grabbed Song Yuan in the blink of an eye and easily sent his magic treasures flying, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. They didn't even have the thought of running away. When Qi Ruyan saw Lu Kuan's actions, she sighed and said, "Junior Martial Brother, you brought this disaster upon yourself. You have to bear the consequences. Release your spiritual sense." Song Yuan revealed a dejected expression and gave up on resisting, allowing Lu Kuan's powerful late nascent soul spiritual sense to enter his body. After a long while, Lu Kuan's expression relaxed, and he removed his hand from Song Yuan's neck. "At least you were honest and didn't lie." He glanced at Qi Ruyan and said, "Lu will deal with the Seven Fiends sect." However, the Ghost Spirit sect dared to attack the body refining pavilion. Don't tell me you don't plan on giving Lu an explanation? A trace of humiliation flashed through Qi Ruyan's eyes, and her body trembled. She clenched her teeth and said, "The Ghost Spirit sect was in the wrong this time. Does Master Lu have any requests?" Lu Kuan's lips moved, and he directly transmitted his voice to Qi Ruyan. Qi Ruyan revealed a stunned expression, as if she hadn't expected such a request. "If you agree, then use Lu's oath stone to form a contract." Qi Ruyan was stunned for a moment before she decisively said, "All right, I agree to Master Lu's conditions." Chapter 1075. In a 9E mountain range, atop a broken mountain peak, the 6 nascent soul cultivators of the Ghost Spirit sect stared at Lu Kuan's disappearing figure in the distance and remained silent for a long time. After over an hour, Qi Ruyan's hand flashed with spiritual light and a gray restriction appeared around them. She said with relief, "Master Lu should have left. It is truly fortunate that our sect was able to survive this calamity." Song Yin circulated his magic power and evaporated the cold sweat in his robes. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said, "I fear that Master Lu possesses the strength of a deity transformation cultivator. In his eyes, our cultivations are no different from insects. After being struck by him, we can't even summon the magic power in our bodies." The other early nascent soul elders nodded in agreement. Master Lu didn't seem to have used too many methods, but the strength he revealed was enough to cause them to feel despair. He had an unbreakable defense, a speed that was close to teleportation, and a fleshly body enhanced by the origin chi of heaven and earth. Even if they split up and fled, it would be difficult for them to escape. A white-haired nascent soul cultivator respectfully said to Qi Ruyan, "Grand Elder truly has foresight. He told us not to act blindly without thinking. Otherwise, if we anger Master Lu, the consequences would be unthinkable." Qi Ruyan looked in the direction Lu Kuan disappeared and sighed. She had been under the greatest pressure during the negotiation. If she wasn't careful, the Ghost Spirit Sect's foundation would have been destroyed in a single day. It felt as if she was facing a nascent soul cultivator as a core formation cultivator. Qi Ruyan pondered for a moment and said, "Master Lu's strength is even more frightening than the rumors say. However, the spiritual sense he revealed was only at the early late nascent soul stage. His cultivation shouldn't have reached deity transformation stage. If I'm not mistaken, his cultivation should still be at late nascent soul stage. However, due to the unique nature of body cultivators and their lack of shortcomings, we felt that there was a huge gap between them. Presumably, even a peak cultivator like Taoist Dao, he wouldn't be a match for Master Lu. With that said, her expression turned serious, and she continued, "Although Master Lu is tyrannical, he isn't a murderous person. This can be considered an opportunity for our sect. Not only has Junior Martial Brother Song reached mid-nascent soul stage, but we also have an opportunity to cooperate with the Body Refining Pavilion." Chi-Rian swept her gaze over everyone and solemnly said, "No one is allowed to speak of today's matter. Grand Elder." She looked at the white-haired old man who spoke before and tossed him a magic tool that looked like a token. She instructed, "Junior Martial Brother Zhang, you and Junior Martial Brother Song will go to Qi State's West Province. You'll be in charge of communicating with the Sacred Poison Sect. This token was left behind by Master Lu. You can meet the sect master of the Sacred Poison Sect with it. As for the others, you're not allowed to go into seclusion for the time being. Stay in the sect and watch over it. The news of the meteorite will soon spread. We have to deal with other fellow cultivators." Her gaze was distant as she said, "Master Lu has searched Junior Martial Brother Song's soul and already knows many of our sect secrets. However, these are of no value to someone of his cultivation. Instead, our sect secretly established the Sifting Sect in West Province, which will be of some help to the Body Refining Pavilion. The Body Refining Pavilion has sealed off the land of Wei State. There are almost no cultivation sects that have any interactions with them. If we can help them seize the demonic Dragon Mountain this time, we'll be able to form a relationship with them. If the Body Refining Pavilion attacks the cultivation world of Chu State, our sect will be able to survive. When the news of the meteorite dies down, all of you will go to West Province to help." "Yes, Grand Elder." Everyone discussed for a while more before dispersing. A few days later, on the surface of the sea somewhere in the inland sea, a dozen cultivators were floating in midair. 3 of them were standing on the clouds, looking down at the sea below and talking to each other. The others were standing respectfully behind them. The 3 people in the lead were Lu Kuan, Taoist Master Dao Yi, and Qinming Zhu of the Star Moon Pavilion. Lu Kuan was wearing a gray robe, and his aura was not obvious. Taoist Master Dao Yi's body was surrounded by some clouds and mist. His cultivation had improved a lot compared to 100 years ago. As for Qinming Zhu, he was already at the mid-nascent soul stage. It was obvious that he had gained a lot in the war 100 years ago. "So, that Dragon King is still in a deep sleep?" Lu Kuan asked curiously. Taoist Master Dao nodded and said, "The Kuei Cow King is still in contact with the young master of the Flood Dragon clan. It is said that the old Dragon King has recovered from his injuries, but because of the damage to his lifespan, he had to fall into a deep sleep. The level 10 turtle demon is dead, and the power of the Sea Tribe has returned to the hands of the Flood Dragon clan. These flood dragons with high cultivation are guarding the Dragon Palace in the depths of the Outer Sea. Most of the Sea Tribe forces have retreated to the Outer Sea. The situation now is similar to the time in the Abyss City. However, because of the Thousand Tides formation, there are more low-level sea demons in the Inner Sea. The production of monster cores has been good these years." Lu Kuan heard the news and relaxed a little. It seemed that the Body Refining Pavilion would not have a shortage of monster cores in the short term. By the way, Taoist Master Dao, he said that there will be more people coming to help. I wonder who it is. Taoist Master Dao, he stroked his beard and said, "Taoist Master He Yin of the Scorching Sun sect will also come this time. He cultivates the black spirit burning flame, which can restrain the demon chi to a certain extent." At this time, Chun Mingzhu said, "Master Lu, we are going to enter the core of the Demon Island. According to the information we have collected over the years, the ancient demon clan that invaded the immortal cultivation world in ancient times is suppressed there. After so many years, I am afraid that the demon soul has fallen. But if the ancient demon clan is lucky enough to survive, we will have to rely on Master Lu's magical power." Lu Kuan showed a look of interest and said, "To be honest, Lu has always wanted to see a living demon clan. If there is one in the Demon Island, then this trip will not be in vain." Taoist Master Dao laughed and said, "As the place of suppression, Yuan's sect must have left some treasures. Even if there is no living demon clan, Master Lu will not return empty-handed. Lu Kuan's expression suddenly changed and said, Taoist Master Dao Yi, do you think there will be a divine spirit treasure in there? I, Lu, have never seen such a treasure in all my years of cultivation. Taoist Master Dao Yi's expression stagnated. Master Lu is joking. This kind of treasure is rare even in ancient times. Yuan's sect will not waste it here. Lu Kuan smiled and said, Haha, Lu is just casually mentioning it. As for the demon clan's bones, I hope you two can give them to Lu. Taoist Master Dao Yi said, that is natural. We do not cultivate demon techniques. It is useless to have the demon clan's bones. But Master Lu wants these. Is it related to the body refining technique? Lu Kuan was just about to speak when suddenly he said, the demon island is about to appear. The others also looked down. A simple and heavy aura spread out from the sea surface, and a dazzling white light gushed out. The seawater seemed to be hit by something heavy, and huge waves of 70 or 80 feet high surged in all directions. Through the white light, a giant island could be vaguely seen. Lu Kuan saw this scene and could not help but narrow his eyes. If he remembered correctly, when the demon island appeared, there would be a yellow and white fog composed of Ling Qi and Demon Qi, but this time there was no such thing. Could it be that after the black demon soul escaped 300 years ago, some kind of change occurred on the demon island? Chapter 1076. The Ancestor of Body Cultivators. Tomorrow, 2 chapters. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 1077. In any case, there should be a change in the core formation. Lu Kuan had encountered many secret realms left behind by the Yuan sect. Basically, they used all kinds of strange methods to resist the true demonic qi. The secret island in the chaotic ocean, the horseshoe mountain of the scorching sun sect, and the Rongyuan devil cave, where he was now in seclusion, were used to wear down the water of the true demonic. The Yuan secret realm was used to purify the water of the true demonic. The abnormalities of the Yuan sect formations were almost all problems with the true demonic qi at the core. The flame eruption of the horseshoe mountain many years ago, the explosion of the demonic qi in the Yunling Mountains, and the appearance of the devil pool in the demonic dragon mountain in the western region were all the same. While Lu Kuan was talking, Chen Mingzhu flew down with a dozen or so core formation cultivators behind her. Everyone was holding a shining formation plate and a devil token in their hands. Each cultivator was in a position to control some kind of formation. Lu Kuan looked down at the island, and his expression changed. I heard that the Devil Island was accidentally discovered tens of thousands of years ago. At that time, several nascent soul stage cultivators joined forces, but they couldn't break this layer of restriction. Dao, a spiritual master side. It's not just nascent soul stage. This island was actually created by the turbulent qi of heaven and earth because of serene. Even with his soul formation stage cultivation, he couldn't enter. This shows how terrifying this restriction is. Lu Kuan was shocked. It can actually stop soul formation stage cultivators. Dao, a spiritual master, smiled. That's also because Senior Yin didn't understand this restriction. After many years of consumption, the power of this restriction is not as strong as before. Even so, if we don't rely on the Xingyue Pavilion's method of breaking it, we can't enter with our strength alone. Lu Kuan wanted to try if he could use the devil token to enter. After all, demonic energy was not a type of magic power or demonic energy. Moreover, the restriction here was likely to be the same as the Yuan secret realm, where one's physical cultivation couldn't be detected. Just as the two were talking, a black light suddenly appeared in the sky in the distance. It was like a ball of flame flying toward them. Even dozens of miles away, they could feel the amazing momentum. Lu Kuan was taken aback. Fellow Taoist black flame has reached the late stage of the nascent soul stage? Taoist Dao Yi's gaze was somewhat hazy. He lightly snorted and said, I don't know what kind of luck this guy had, but he was lucky enough to successfully break through a few years ago. Lu Kuan narrowed his eyes slightly. If the information he received was correct, Han Feng of the Fallen Cloud Valley had also entered the Grand Cultivator realm. In that case, although the cultivation world of the Chu state had become smaller, the strength of the high-level cultivators had increased greatly. There were a total of 3 late-stage nascent soul realm cultivators. With this level of strength, the threat to the body refining pavilion is greatly increased. Should we take this opportunity to eliminate these 2 people? I can enter the Demon Island alone with my physical body. Lu Kuan's heart gradually surged with killing intent. A person's ambition grew with their strength. Not to mention others. Even Lu Kuan himself was the same. Just based on the fact that the Chu state was adjacent to the sea and had a large harvest of demon cores every year, he had some ideas. However, the body refining pavilion strength was still somewhat insufficient. He had to first take over the Devil's Pool in the demonic Dragon Mountain to ensure the number of high-level body cultivators. I'll think about it after entering the Demon Island. Even if there are restrictions of the contract, I can use the Divine Sense concealment technique to avoid the backlash. When the time comes, I'll push the blame to the ancient demon clan. A series of thoughts flashed through Lu Kuan's mind. Then, he smiled and greeted Taoist Black Flame, who was flying over. Fellow Taoist Black Flame, congratulations on the great improvement in your cultivation. With fellow Taoist Black Flame's aptitude, you can expect to enter the soul formation stage in the future. Taoist Dao, he secretly wiped away his cold sweat. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he just felt a piercing chill. After glancing at Lu Kuan from the corner of his eye, he also greeted him. However, his divine sense quietly locked onto a treasure in his bracelet. Taoist Black Flame landed in front of the 2 and cupped his fists. Master Lu, you must be joking. I'm already burning incense to be able to enter the late nascent soul stage. How can I expect to enter the soul formation stage? He then looked at the person next to him and said meaningfully, Brother Dao, you still have a chance. Taoist Dao, said coldly, after I failed to break through, I've already given up on that idea. Fellow Taoist Black Flame, you don't have to test me. Pavilion Master Chun has finished assigning the task and is coming over. Let's prepare to sign the alliance contract. After saying that, a stone surrounded by clouds and mist appeared in his hand. There was also an ethereal feeling that Lu Kuan had felt before. It was the Dao Sex Oath Stone. When Chun Mingzhu landed on the clouds, Taoist Dao, said, the 4 of us just don't attack each other. The spoils of war will be distributed according to the amount of effort we put in. Lu Kuan nodded and said, no problem. However, if we encounter the skeleton of the demon clan, Lu will exchange it with something of the same value. I hope you guys can let me have it. The other 3 did not have any objections. They activated their divine sense and signed the contract. However, Lu Kuan hid part of his divine sense in his spinal cord and only revealed the divine sense of the peak of the mid-nascent soul stage. As the restrictive force formed, Lu Kuan clearly felt that Taoist Dao, Taoist Black Flame, and even Chun Mingzhu's expressions relax a lot. He could not help but sneer in his heart. For the development of the body refining pavilion, the Chu country's immortal cultivation world can only have one great cultivator. After about half a day, the layer of white restrictive force outside the demon island flickered violently. On the surrounding sea surface, bursts of white mist rose and continuously surged toward this layer of restrictive force. After a while, the originally dazzling white restrictive force turned into a gray light curtain. It looked like its aura had been greatly reduced. Chun Mingzhu said, this layer of restrictive force has been weakened to the level of an ordinary restrictive force. As long as you have the power of the late nascent soul stage, you can break it and enter. It is the same when you return. Brother Taoist Dao, please lead me. Taoist Dao, nodded and flew out of the restrictive force with Chun Mingzhu. With a wave of his sleeve, a strong icy mist flashed, and a hole was broken in the restrictive force. The two flashed into it. Taoist black flame stretched out his palm. A layer of black flame covered it and burned a hole in it. Lu Kuan also came to the side of the restrictive force. He stretched out his hand and found that this layer of restrictive force was only rich in spiritual force. It did not contain the chi of heaven and earth. He rushed forward and directly smashed a human-shaped hole with brute force. With a flash of white light, everyone came to a platform on the top of the mountain. This was the place where Foundation Establishment Stage Immortal Cultivators entered with the demon token. They still came here after breaking the restrictive force. Everyone follow me. Taoist Dao, he led everyone to the center of the island and said casually, I heard that 300 years ago, there was a cultivator with the same name as Master Lu who came to the demon island. He also used a physical force. Could he be a disciple of the body, refining pavilion? Lu Kuan was stunned and said, I didn't expect Brother Taoist Dao to be able to find out about something that happened hundreds of years ago. That person was a disciple of the body, refining pavilion. However, it was none other than Lu. What, it's you, Master Lu? Taoist Dao Yi's voice seemed to be a little exaggerated and full of disbelief. The others were also shocked. Taoist Black Flame said with a dry mouth, So, Master Lu is really a former disciple of the Yang clan? Lu Kuan asked curiously. You should have already investigated Lu's background. Why are you only asking now? Taoist Dao Yi smiled bitterly and said, Although we investigated the Yang clan, we all felt that the Pavilion Master took the initiative to become a low-level cultivator. Since Master Lu was able to enter the Demon Island 300 years ago, his cultivation level must not be higher than the core formation stage. Didn't it only take him 300 years to cultivate to his current cultivation level? Lu Kuan did not hide and nodded. That's right. Taoist Dao Yi glanced at Taoist Black Flame. His eyes seemed to contain something else. Then he said enviously, At Master Lu's age, he has a greater chance of entering the soul formation stage than us. In the future, we will need Master Lu's help. It is extremely difficult to break through the body, refining technique. Lu has not found the direction yet. Master Lu is too modest. Lu Kuan suddenly felt a little strange. For some reason, he felt that Taoist Dao Yi's tone was not that shocked. It did not seem like he just found out. Their speed was amazing. In just a few words, they arrived at the center of the Demon Island. Chapter 1078. In the center of the Demon Island was a small mountain range with a radius of dozens of miles. It gathered thick spiritual energy and demonic aura. These two types of energy divided the mountain range into two areas. In the middle was everyone's destination. Lu Kuan and the others landed in the depths of the spiritual energy mountain range. Standing in front of them was a white restriction that went straight to the sky. The restriction, spiritual light, gushed out from the bottom of the mountain range and connected with the large-scale restriction that shrouded the Demon Island. These white restrictions formed an oval shape along the demonic spiritual energy mountain range, like a canyon. Taoist Dao, he looked at the white restriction and released his divine sense to check its strength. After thinking for a moment, the ice cloud fan appeared in his hand. Dense magic power surged, and a cold cloud with a terrifying force smashed forward. Bang! An inexplicable fluctuation gushed out. This cold ice cloud that contained the spiritual energy of heaven and earth quickly dissolved. First, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth collapsed. Then, the power of the ice cloud inside turned into pure spiritual energy and dissipated into the air. Seeing this scene, everyone was moved. Dao Yi's cultivation was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage. His spiritual power was incomparably vigorous. Even so, this restriction was not shaken at all. It could be seen that its defensive power was amazing. Lu Kuan thought of Tian Renjia, who was only in the Foundation Establishment realm. This guy seemed to have obtained some kind of artifact from the Black Fiend Demon Soul. He was actually able to break this restriction and let the Black Fiend Demon Soul escape. Thinking about it, it was somewhat unbelievable. Chun Mingzhu said, "This layer of restriction is nourished by dense demonic aura and spiritual energy. Even a soul formation stage cultivator would find it difficult to break it. However, its characteristics are similar to the formation outside. I'll have to trouble you to form a formation with me and break it with a formation." As he spoke, he took out 4 restriction formation plates. They were densely covered with complex spiritual patterns. In the middle, there was also a demon token inlaid. Lu Kuan frowned and said, "Lu's spiritual power is a bit special. It's almost impossible to activate a high-level formation plate. I'm afraid there's no way to activate the formation plate." Chen Mingzhu was stunned. Master Lu's magical power. Okay, if that's the case, his expression seemed to be a little depressed. His fingers moved quickly. At the same time, a black and white light flashed in his eyes as he stared at the white restriction in front of him. After a while, he forced a smile and said, "Luckily, the restriction here is much weaker than it was 300 years ago. It's also possible for 3 people to set up a formation. However, this restriction won't be broken directly. Instead, it will be weakened by more than half. Master Lu will need to stand at the node of the formation and wait for an opportunity to forcefully attack." Lu Kuan nodded. "No problem." After that, Chun Mingzhu explained the main points of the array to them. Lu Kuan listened carefully. Although he was proficient in the Great 5 Elements art, the Tao of array formations was different, especially one that involved the Qi of heaven and earth. He could only tell that this formation borrowed the power of the 5 elements of heaven and earth. As for the other mysteries, he was not too clear. On the other hand, Taoist Tao, E, and Tao Monarch Black Flame nodded from time to time, looking as if they had understood something. To an original leveled cultivator, arrays were a must-have. Not only were these 2 extremely talented, but they were also the leaders of their respective sections. Naturally, they were well-versed in arrays. After an hour, they all understood their respective tasks. The 4 of them formed a triangular formation. Lu Kuan was in the middle, sticking close to the white restriction. Taoist Tao, E, and Tao Monarch Black Flame were about 10 feet away from him, respectively on his left and right. They were also sticking close to the restriction. Chun Mingzhu was behind the 3 of them, holding an 8 trigrams formation plate in her hand. The other 3 sat cross-legged and calculated their positions. They placed the formation plate in front of them and engraved array patterns around it. As the array was perfected, a mysterious wave spread out in all directions. The white restriction in front of the 4 of them, under the influence of this wave, flashed with spiritual light. The thick spiritual qi in the mountain range seemed to be attracted and started to gather here. Soon, everyone was enveloped by spiritual qi clouds, as if they were in a fairyland. "Master Lu, pay attention to the restriction in front of us. It will only weaken for a moment. Be ready to attack at any time." Lu Kuan nodded slightly and looked ahead. His eyes flashed with a faint golden light. Unfortunately, with his current golden eye, he could not see through this terrifying restriction that carried the spiritual qi of heaven and earth. However, he was sure that the spiritual light on this layer of restriction was gradually weakening. Therefore, he clenched one hand into a fist and poured blood into the muscles of his right arm. His right arm began to swell. Under the watchful eyes of the others, Lu Kuan still intended to hide some of his strength and pretend to use the arm connecting divine ability. As time passed, the mysterious wave became more and more intense. The white restriction in front of them became dimmer and dimmer, as if the spiritual qi inside was being sucked out. "Master Lu, get ready." Hearing Chun Mingzhu's voice, Lu Kuan's eyes narrowed, and he was ready. He could even see through the dim restriction light curtain and see the dense demonic qi behind it. "Do it." Lu Kuan reacted very quickly. His right fist had already condensed a faint halo. The surrounding spiritual qi was abnormally rich and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was also very dense. He easily struck out an intercept fist and directly blasted it. Boom! A terrifying chi wave violently surged. The dim restriction's spiritual light shattered like a mirror. Lu Kuan's body also staggered. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. He did not expect this restriction to have the ability to rebound. But at this moment, Lu Kuan's expression suddenly changed. No, the surrounding Dharma formation power. He suddenly felt the mysterious wave controlled by Chun Mingzhu and the others. It suddenly enveloped him. The restriction power that carried the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was like layers of shackles that imprisoned him in place. At the same time, a faint purple shadow shot out from the broken white restriction. Lu Kuan did not expect that there would be an attack from a magic treasure behind the restrictions of this fiendish demon island. He did not know what kind of magic skill the restriction around him was. Even with his physical strength of more than 1,000,000 kilograms, he could not break free. The faint purple shadow was a Dharma treasure that looked like a jade bracelet. It did not attack Lu Kuan's body, but floated above his head. In the middle of the jade bracelet, a purple-black liquid appeared out of thin air. It exuded an extremely pure demonic chi and was accompanied by a brutal intent. The water of the true demon? No, it's a little different. Lu Kuan's entire body was directly covered by the liquid that seemed to be the water of the true demon. The liquid was extremely viscous and full of spirituality, and it wanted to drill into his body. Although Lu Kuan could not move, his control of his body was extremely precise. All his pores were closed, and all his muscles were tensed up, blocking the strange water of the true demon. However, the surging true demon intent could not be isolated, and the extremely brutal intent surged into his body. Immediately after, 6 black halos gushed out from the jade bracelet magic treasure, carrying a layer of thick halo, like ropes, binding Lu Kuan's arms and legs. At this time, Lu Kuan had turned into a purple-black figure that was bound, exuding an extremely rich demonic chi. The broken white restriction around him seemed to have discovered something. It let out an angry roar, and a milky white restriction power surged toward Lu Kuan one after another, merging with the power of the Dharma formation of Chun Mingzhu and the others. A restraining force that was several times stronger than before acted on Lu Kuan's body. Under this terrifying power, the mountain rocks under his feet exploded with a loud bang. A white ball of spiritual light was suspended in midair. Lu Kuan's purple-black figure was trapped in it, and he could not move. The rich spiritual chi in the surroundings gathered madly. Even the demonic chi in the distance seemed to have sensed it. It turned into a yellow cloud and flew over. Lu Kuan's body creaked. He felt the endless yuan chi of heaven and earth continuously pressing down on his body. It was as if he was being suppressed by the whole world. His muscles were under great pressure, and they emitted a unique glow. His entire body was like a precious treasure, standing firm and unmoving. At this time, a man's voice suddenly came from the demonic chi cloud behind him. As expected of the owner of the body, refining pavilion. The strength of your body is even more terrifying than that of the ancient demon clan. If it weren't for the cooperation of my fallen demon ring and the demon island's grand nightmare formation, I'm afraid we wouldn't be able to bind you. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that there was such a miraculous body refining technique in this world. As he spoke, a middle-aged man wearing a purple robe appeared from the demonic chi behind the white restriction. His demonic chi was extremely rich. He was actually a demonic cultivator of the great cultivator realm. Beside him, there was an old man with half-white hair and wearing a green robe. This person had a thick layer of magic power shield around his body, isolating him from the demonic chi. His aura was not weaker than the middle-aged man's. He was also a late nascent soul realm expert. Chapter 1079. This powerful confinement force was like a special kind of power of vitality. It continuously poured in from all directions, and even Lu Kuan's physical origin power was suppressed. However, his physical body was not to be underestimated. Although he could not move a finger, this force could not hurt him. Lu Kuan closed his eyes and observed the surrounding situation through his golden eyes. On both sides of the two unfamiliar great cultivators, the white seal in the center of the demon island had been opened, but it did not close. Instead, it rushed toward Lu Kuan, which meant that he was bearing the seal power of the island. Dao, Yi, and the other two, not sure if it was because of the contract or other reasons, continued to control the formation plate in place and did not do anything else. Lu Kuan glanced around, and a low voice came from his chest and abdomen. He used ventriloquism. It seems that this trip to the demon island is a trap to deal with Lu. You two are so unfamiliar with your appearance and cultivation. You are definitely not cultivators from the nearby Immortal Kingdom. Could it be that you are from the Great Zhou dynasty? The middle-aged man smiled and said, Master Lu is indeed powerful. You guessed our origin. Yes, I am the third elder of the Saint Devil sect, Shui Tianyu. The other white-haired old man also cupped his hands and said, I am Peng Yuanhua of the Xian sect. I didn't expect that after not coming back for hundreds of years, Master Lu actually did what I couldn't do back then. You unified the immortal realm of Wei. It is really admirable. When Lu Kuan heard this name, he carefully looked at the other's appearance and said in a neither fast nor slow tone, so it was the great elder of the former Shanqing sect. Sorry for the disrespect. Lu is a bit strange. Since you two are elders of the Great Zhou sect, why did you come here to deal with Lu? I didn't offend the Saint Devil sect and the Xin sect. Shui Tianyu said with a slight smile. What? Master Lu wants to stall for time and wait for Dao, Yi, and the others to exhaust their spiritual power. Lu Kuan said slowly. So what if it is? Although Lu's other mystiques are ordinary, his physical defense is not weak. Even if it is the true demonic intent, he can still resist it for a while. As for Dao, Yi, and the others, they have used up quite a bit of their mana to activate such a profound formation. For safety's sake, you should immediately attack Lu. Shui Tianyu laughed and said, We are very clear about Master Lu's physical defense. However, this Shui has the same idea as you. I want to see who can last longer. Lu Kuan said coldly, I think the two of you don't want to attack this jade bracelet magic treasure. Without it, the Grand Nightmare formation that fellow Taoist Shui spoke of will most likely lose its effect. Shui Tianyu's laughter stopped and his face darkened. So what if Master Lu guessed correctly? Although the fallen demon bracelet is only a replica of our sect's signature treasure, but with sufficient true demonic water, its power is not weaker than a divine spiritual treasure. In addition to the powerful binding power, the fallen demon water and brutal intent will corrode the soul. Master Lu's mystique is amazing, but he is not a divine transformation stage cultivator. After a long time, it is inevitable that he will be corroded by the true demonic intent. Moreover, the Grand Nightmare formation isolates the demonic aura. Master Lu's physical energy cannot be replenished. Under such circumstances, how can he outlast us? Lu Kuan was silent for a while and said in a low voice, Grand Nightmare formation? It sounds like fellow Taoist Shui is very familiar with the restrictions of the Demon Island. To be able to sneak in before the island appeared, I'm afraid that Chun Mingzhu's method of breaking the formation came from the Saint Devil sect. Shui Tianyu revealed a proud expression. The formation of the Demon Island is only a formation from the early days of the ancient Yuan sect. It is not perfect. Our sect is located in a nightmare land. The formation here is just like our own sect's forbidden formation. It is not difficult to borrow it. Lu Kuan sighed softly. It seems that the two of you came for the body refining art. Lu thinks that the body refining pavilion is very low-key. This technique should not have spread to the Zhou dynasty so quickly. After all, the Heaven's Passage River to the north of the Qi Kingdom is not easy to cross. Shui Tianyu said, Master Lu is right. If our Saint Devil sect had not entered the Qi Kingdom, I'm afraid that we would not have known that such a miraculous technique had appeared in such a remote place. Lu Kuan's tone was somewhat surprised. The Qi Kingdom? The Saint Devil sect has entered the Qi Kingdom. Could it be that they are eyeing the territory of the Qi Kingdom? No matter how strong you are, if you fight across the border, you will not be a match for the 3 great demon sections. Then his tone changed. Could it be the 7 Evils sect? A Master Lu is indeed powerful. It seems that you have already been to the Ghost Spirit sect. The 7 Evils sect was originally a chess piece of the Saint Devil sect. Now it is time to reap the rewards. However, I did not expect that I would discover the existence of the body refining pavilion. Shuetan Yu revealed a somewhat fanatical expression and said, if we can obtain this body refining art, our sect's strength will greatly increase. Combined with our demon arts, we will be even stronger than the ancient demon clan. Lu Kuan interrupted. Why is fellow Taoist Peng of the Xian sect here? If Lu's information is correct, the Xian sect is ranked 4th in the Zhou dynasty. They are a strong opponent of the Saint Devil sect. Hearing this, Peng Yuanhua smiled and said, Master Lu, I'm afraid you do not understand the sects of the Zhou dynasty. The Saint Devil sect cultivates demon arts, and our sect's territory only has pure spirit energy. The opponent they want to surpass is the 3rd-ranked Prime Devil sect. If our Xian sect obtains the body refining art, in a few hundred years, we may surpass the 2nd-ranked Blue Cloud sect. Our sect and the Saint Devil sect have the same goal. Otherwise, we would not have joined forces to deal with Master Lu. Lu Kuan pondered for a moment and said, fellow Taoist Peng was the Grand Elder of the Shangqing sect, and the 7 Evils sect was a pawn of the Saint Devil sect. Then, Xiao Hongfei was also kidnapped by you? Peng Yuanhua nodded and revealed a trace of emotion. The black gold mantra that Xiao Hongfei cultivates has been tampered with by the Shangqing sect. If we use our unique mind-clearing technique, we can temporarily control his spirit and make him voluntarily reveal some information. However, I did not expect the Oath Stone of the Body Refining Pavilion to be so powerful. I did not obtain any body refining art. I only learned some information about some body refining art that requires the absorption of both demon and spirit energy. High-level body refining art has a high demand for demon corpses. In addition, Taoist Dao Yi's understanding of Master Lu made him set up this trap. Lu Kuan was silent for a moment and said, are the Dao Yi sect and the Scorching Sun sect also the pawns of the Xian sect? The 2 of them have seen Lu's strength and do not have the guts to make a move. Peng Yuanhua sighed and said, speaking of which, this is really an opportunity for the Xian sect. Martial Uncle had just reached the spirit-severing stage not long ago. When his primordial spirit merged, he sensed that the spirit-severing stage of Chu had no master. He knew that the spirit-severing stage powerhouse here had already fallen. I came here to use the land of Chu to reach the spirit-severing stage, but I did not expect to find the existence of the body refining pavilion. Brother Dao, he just happened to fail in his breakthrough. In exchange for the secret method of his sect, he is willing to cooperate with me. Taoist Black Flame is the same. Hearing all this, Lu Kuan's doubts were finally resolved. He said with a strange tone, what will come will come. It seems that there is no room for negotiation. You plan to kill Lu. Shui Tianyou's eyes flashed coldly. As long as a powerhouse like Master Lu disappears, the body refining pavilion will not be able to resist so many powerhouses even with the powerful Oath Stone. The body refining art will be spat out sooner or later. Lu Kuan sighed and said, if you had made a move against Lu a few decades ago, you might have succeeded. Unfortunately, you are destined to return empty-handed this time. Following his sigh, Lu Kuan opened his mouth and directly swallowed the so-called fallen demon liquid. The true demon aura on his body rapidly diminished, and even the brutal intent of the true demon began to dissipate. Shui Tianyou's expression changed greatly. What's going on? Did you absorb the true demon intent? That's impossible. As he spoke, the dense demonic energy in his body surged, and he formed a series of seals. The fallen demon ring floating above Lu Kuan's head once again poured out a purplish-black liquid and sprayed it down towards Lu Kuan. His fallen demon ring had two other uses apart from its binding power. The first was to transform Lu Kuan's aura into that of the demon race, which would trigger the demon island's restrictions. If the true demon aura disappeared, the island's restrictions wouldn't be triggered. The second was that enemies controlled by the fallen demon ring would become true demon puppets as the corrosion deepened. They would be controlled by their master for a period of time. As long as he could control Lu Kuan for a moment, the body refining art would be easy to obtain. But Shui Tianyu had never imagined that this guy would not only swallow the fallen demon liquid, but also use some method to conceal his true demon aura. If he lost the demon island's restrictions, he didn't think that the minor nightmare formation would be able to restrain him. Chapter 1080. When a second wave of devilfall water poured down, Lu Kuan closed his mouth. However, the pores on his body were completely opened, allowing the liquid to enter his body. Although the true demon aura was quickly fading away, a terrifying pressure was gradually emitted from his body. The four fallen demon rings that were trapping his body began to tremble slightly. Shui Tianyu felt that something was wrong. The other party seemed to be using the devilfall water to cast a spell. The devilfall water is refined from the water of the true demon. This guy hasn't reached the soul formation stage yet. How can he use this kind of violent energy? Everyone be careful. As he pondered, he retracted his hand's seal. The demon fallen hoop no longer spewed out liquid, but instead emitted an even denser purple halo, reinforcing the purple halos that were trapping Lu Kuan. Together with the Grand Nightmare formation, they bound the other party. These people were all powerful nascent soul cultivators. They had already noticed the change in Lu Kuan. Hearing Shui Tianyu's warning, they didn't hesitate to strengthen their protective shields. Chun Mingzhu, who had the lowest cultivation, even summoned an 8 trigrams plate magic treasure to block in front of him. Just as everyone finished their defensive actions, a huge illusion appeared behind Lu Kuan. It was a huge black ape with extremely thick arms. Its posture was exactly the same as Lu Kuan's. It lowered its head, bent slightly, and its chest rose and fell violently. In the next moment, Lu Kuan suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with purplish-black violence. The bulging muscles on his chest suddenly retracted. At the same time, the black ape illusion behind him opened its mouth. Roar! A clearly visible spiral ripple with a thick layer of purple light gushed out from his mouth. It was like a monstrous wave that fiercely slammed forward. Lu Kuan borrowed the true demon aura from the other party and directly used the heavenly roar. The ripple from the roar collided with the Grand Nightmare formation's light barrier. The purplish-white halos intertwined violently. The terrifying power of the origin Qi surged wildly within the Grand Nightmare formation. At the same time, a deafening sound waved past through the restrictive spell and spread out in all directions. The protective spiritual aura of the surrounding nascent soul stage cultivators trembled violently. Just this terrifying sound alone had a lot of lethality. If Shui Tianyu hadn't understood the supernatural powers of body cultivators and added a soundproof restriction on his shield, he would have suffered a lot. With the support of sufficient true demonic intent, Lu Kuan's piercing sky roar was unceasing. The spiral sound waves were like waves of a river, constantly bombarding the Grand Nightmare formation. As he used the piercing sky roar, the true demon aura on his body became weaker and weaker, and the Grand Nightmare array also slowly faded away. Under this situation, the minor nightmare devil formation activated by the people below was under great pressure. Dao E Daoist and the others lost their Fa Li even faster. Shui Tianyu's face was gloomy. His hands were constantly forming hand seals, controlling the devil ring above Lu Kuan's head with all his strength. He increased its binding power to the limit. He said with a hoarse voice, The devil ring can't demonize him. Now, we can only kill him and get the cultivation method from the body, refining pavilion. Peng Yuanhua nodded solemnly. Suddenly, a dark green ruler appeared in his hand. The surface of the ruler was densely covered with mysterious patterns. At first glance, one would feel dizzy. His expression was solemn. The vigorous fa li of a late nascent soul stage cultivator quickly circulated. Immediately after, a sword chi-like green light shot out from the ruler. It was surrounded by a dense halo of origin chi. Although this green light could be seen, it seemed formless. It passed through the Grand Nightmare Formation's spiritual aura as if it didn't exist and directly rushed towards Lu Kuan's heart. When this green light appeared, Lu Kuan felt a burst of fear. He turned his mouth, and the violent spiral sound waves of the piercing sky roar blasted towards this green light. The purplish-green light shone brightly. Demonic origin chi and green origin chi intertwined. Although the piercing sky roar was terrifying and could stimulate the might of demonic origin chi, it wasn't mainly used for defense. Moreover, this green light had an extremely strong penetrative power. After consuming a lot of spiritual aura, the green light still passed through the faint purple spiral sound waves. The blood in Lu Kuan's body quickly rushed to his chest. The muscles on his left chest bulged like a small mountain, turning into a hideous muscle lump. Puchi! The green light pierced into the muscle lump and crazily drilled inside. However, this pectoral muscle was constantly replenished by blood. Before it reached the ribs, its power dissipated. Lu Kuan's expression became serious. This was the first time he had encountered such a terrifying attack. The origin chi of heaven and earth contained within it was beyond imagination. It was equivalent to converting origin chi into a spell. This was much more terrifying than absorbing origin chi of heaven and earth in an attack. Although it didn't injure Lu Kuan, it interrupted the piercing sky roar. The deafening roar gradually dissipated in the mountain range. The white restriction in front of them was still open. However, the restriction power of the Grand Nightmare Formation didn't continue to reinforce them because it couldn't find the aura of a true demon. The restrictive power around Lu Kuan was greatly reduced. His body could already move slightly. The greatest restrictive power was actually the demonic ring's spiritual aura binding him. Lu Kuan solemnly looked at the green jade ruler in Peng Yuanhua's hand and said in a low voice, "Such terrifying power. Could it be the legendary divine spirit treasure?" Peng Yuanhua looked at the unharmed Lu Kuan and didn't answer. He continued to activate the ruler in his hand. Another green light surged out. Lu Kuan snorted coldly. At this moment, he was already able to operate the origin energy field within a 4-foot radius under the full power of his demon energy. 4 silver vortexes appeared in front of him one after another, and a terrifying suction and twisting force surged out from them. The green light directly pierced into the origin energy vortexes. However, this battle skill didn't have the support of origin chi of heaven and earth. It was much weaker than the piercing sky roar. It only expended a little of the green light's power, but it still pierced through and slammed into his bulging chest muscles. Then, Lu Kuan's body trembled slightly, and the green light pierced through his heart, directly smashing the mountain top not far away into smithereens. Lu Kuan, whose chest had been pierced, didn't seem to be injured at all. Strands of origin energy swirled around his body, revolving in the same manner as the severing fist. But at this moment, the demonic ring above his head trembled slightly. The purple rings around his body glowed brightly. Lu Kuan could clearly sense that the origin chi around him was repelled and couldn't be absorbed. Shui Tianyu was slightly taken aback. Then, he laughed and said, "I overestimated Master Lu. Although the demonic transformation divine ability of the demonic ring was broken by you, it is still a divine spirit treasure replica. After being trapped, even a peak late nascent soul stage cultivator would find it difficult to draw upon the origin chi of heaven and earth. Since I can't demonize you, I can only kill you." When Lu Kuan heard this, The corner of his mouth suddenly revealed a mocking smile. Without the help of the Demon Island's great nightmare formation, how could your demonic ring restrain Lu? A fanatical look gradually appeared in his eyes. So what if it's a divine spirit treasure replica? I'll let you see the physical divine ability that Lu mastered not long ago. Transcendence World. Following Lu Kuan's roar, all the muscles in his body wildly swelled. In an instant, he turned into a deformed ball of flesh. Immediately after, the demonic energy in his body surged. A layer of unique magic treasure patterns lit up on the surface of all his bones. The silver light representing the silver dragon meteorite shone brightly. The 200 or so bones creaked and crazily swelled like bamboo shoots after a rain. Lu Kuan's body, which was originally 6 feet tall, grew taller bit by bit. 8 feet, 9 feet, the demonic ring's binding light struggled against the enormous body. The formation's light also flickered incessantly. 3 meters, 15 meters, 20 meters, the little nightmare formation had reached its limit and collapsed. Lu Kuan's body continued to expand until it reached a height of 30 feet. Only then did the transformation stop. The lumps of muscles that were originally squeezed together, after stretching several times, returned to their normal appearance. The demonic ring's binding light couldn't hold on any longer and dissipated into specks of light. In just a short moment, Lu Kuan's ordinary human body had transformed into a 3 feet tall giant. A suffocating pressure emanated from his body. Chapter 1081. Peng Yuanhua felt the terrifying pressure and channeled his spiritual power into the jade ruler in his hand. 2 dazzling green rays of light shot out, carrying an indestructible aura as they blasted towards the giant. That heart-palpitating pressure even suppressed the giant's aura by a notch. After Lu Kuan's body grew larger, his confidence seemed to have increased greatly. In the face of this astonishing attack, he snorted coldly and crossed his arms that were several times larger than before in front of his chest. His thick index and middle fingers were put together, and an invisible force field spun rapidly above them. In front of the fingertips, a silver conical vortex gradually emerged. The surrounding heaven and earth's essence, qi, spontaneously gathered, emitting a dazzling silver halo. These 2 conical fingertips pierced towards the incoming green rays of light. An incomparably sharp, ear-piercing sound rang through the mountains. The green and silver rays of light collided with each other on the fingertips. Both sides condensed the power of penetration, and for a moment, the surrounding air became heavier. Bang! In the next breath, the green rays of light and the conical vortex exploded at the same time. However, there was no excess aura, as if the 2 had mutually annihilated each other. Lu Kuan's 2 fingers lost a piece of flesh, revealing the shiny silver finger bones inside. His body also staggered. Although Xue Tianyu was shocked by the giant in front of him, his reaction was extremely fast. Taking advantage of the moment when the green rays of light attacked the other party, he activated the blood essence in his body and his spiritual power surged. The demonic ring that was still suspended above Lu Kuan's head shone with a purple light, and 2 even larger purple halos gushed out. As the other party staggered, they respectively trapped his upper arms and legs. Facing the normal size of his body, the demonic ring's consumption of spiritual power was not excessive. With Xue Tianyou's rich spiritual power, he could control it freely. However, at this time, Lu Kuan's body suddenly grew larger, and the demonic ring could not support the demonic ring. It was very strenuous for him to urge the 2 huge halos. Not only was his mana consumption 5 times higher than before, but he also had to consume his blood essence and use a secret technique to increase the purity of his mana. When Dao, Yi, and the others on the ground saw this, they came to a realization. They gritted their teeth and continued to control the minor demon trapping formation. Waves of restrictive power surged towards Lu Kuan's legs. Although the formation's range was limited, even if it couldn't trap the opponent's entire body, it had to at least seal a part of his body. These people had done a detailed analysis of Lu Kuan's mystique. They knew very well that the most frightening thing about the owner of the body refining pavilion was his teleportation-like speed. If they didn't restrict his movements, not only would they have no chance of killing Lu Kuan, they might even lose their lives. Lu Kuan lowered his head and looked at the purple halo on his body again. He revealed a mocking expression and said, "Do you really think that this spiritual treasure replica can still restrain Lu?" As he spoke, a layer of invisible force field rippled out around his body that was like a small mountain, and there were even gusts of whirlwinds that surged within an area of several tens of meters. The reason why the combat skills of a body cultivator could draw upon the origin chi of heaven and earth was not only because of the strength of over 1 million kilograms, but also because of the range of the physical body's origin chi. After Lu Kuan entered the middle stage of bone transformation, relying on the increase of his origin chi field to 4 feet, he no longer needed to intercept others. Instead, he could draw upon the origin chi of heaven and earth on his own. Although the passive force field still radiated within 4 feet of his body was completely different from before. If the range of the origin force field increased from the early stage to the middle stage of bone transformation by less than 30%, then after his body grew larger, this range had increased by a full 5 times. Under the full operation of Lu Kuan's origin chi, the surrounding pure spirit chi emitted specks of light and madly surged towards his giant-like body. After the spirit light of the fallen demon ring that bound his body trembled slightly, the demonic origin chi within collapsed and merged into the origin force field. Within 4 feet of Lu Kuan's body, the distorted air that was enveloped by the origin force field had already turned into a hazy halo of light. It was as if countless origin chi halos were curling around his body. A suffocating wave of origin chi surged out. An enormous spirit pressure radiated in all directions. The small nightmare demon formation on the ground was shaken to pieces by this wave of origin chi. Dao, Yi, and the others felt this terrifying wave of chi. They could no longer continue to control the formation plate, and each used their own defensive techniques. Peng Yuanhua, who was not far away, revealed an expression of disbelief when he saw the thick origin chi ring around Lu Kuan's body. He cried out involuntarily, "Origin chi manifestation! How is this possible?" Without another word, he spat out a mouthful of blood essence into the jade ruler in his hand. He poured the magic power in his body into it without any regard for his life. Even a nascent soul in his dantian became shorter. The divine spirit treasure replica trembled slightly, and green light shone brightly. In an instant, 10 streaks of green light surged out. Although they were smaller than the previous streaks of green light, the sheer number of streaks of green light made them much more powerful than before. After Shui Tanyu heard Peng Yuanhua's words, he seemed to have thought of something. His expression was filled with alarm. He hurriedly circulated his demonic origin chi, and the fallen demon ring teleported back to his side. Several purple lights shot out from it and disappeared into the air. He couldn't care less about the churning demonic origin chi in his body. A black and white formation plate immediately appeared in his hand. Spell seals rapidly surged, and the white restriction at the center of the demon island on both sides began to close in the middle. When Lu Kuan saw this, his expression sank. His pillar-like legs bent the air beneath him in a curved arc accompanied by the sound of turbulent air bursting. He shot forward. At the same time, the origin chi ring lingering on the surface of his body converged at his chest and turned into a source power vortex, mixed with a black and white halo. A terrifying suction force emerged from it. The 10 or so azure lights, emitting a strong, penetrating aura, were directly sucked into the vortex. In just a moment, Lu Kuan's body had already rushed in front of the white restriction that was about to close. But at this moment, 3 purple halos suddenly appeared in the air and directly exploded. The surging demonic origin chi turned into a shock wave and shook his huge body back a few steps. In the next moment, the white restriction was completely closed. Lu Kuan's eyes flashed with anger. The source power vortex turned into origin chi halos again, mixed with the azure origin chi and the demonic origin chi that had just exploded. Under the operation of the huge source power field, these origin chi energies were all transferred to his right fist. The huge fist fiercely smashed forward. Boom! A huge, three-colored sun rose, and the whole mountain range seemed to shake. The world's origin chi hidden in the pure spiritual chi appeared one by one, turning into countless origin chi clouds, surging in all directions. Lu Kuan's giant-like body was blasted dozens of feet away, crashing into a mountain top and sinking into the rocks. He looked at his fleshless fist and then looked at the unscathed white restriction light curtain, revealing a somewhat stunned expression. Then he turned his head and looked in another direction. Spiritual Master Dao, Yi, and the others, at some point in time, had joined together and shot towards the edge of the Demon Island. "Can you escape?" Lu Kuan coldly snorted, his body trembling slightly. The rocks under his feet were shaken into powder and shot into the distance. His 3-foot-tall body, as he flew, quickly shrank. Thick bones retracted, and the seemingly normal muscles, because of the shortening of the bones, squeezed back like a spring, turning into the appearance of a deformed meatball. Then, the blood on the muscle fibers returned to the blood vessels along the tendons, and his body returned to its original height of 6 feet. The bone treasures in Lu Kuan's body bloomed with rays of light. His legs turned into phantoms, stepping in the void, rippling out waves of distorted arcs. After his body returned to its normal size, his speed greatly increased, and with an ear-piercing sound of air tearing, he chased after Dao, Yi, and the others who were fleeing. Chapter 1082. The ancestor of body cultivators has adjusted its schedule. Friday night will be added. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.